So Thursday's a day of mixed weather, but it's not as wet as previous days. There is a lot of dry and fine weather out there. Plenty of sunshine in the east and some emerging sunshine into the southwest as well as parts of Wales. In between a few showers, but it's another very mild day with lighter winds compared with the last few days. Temperatures of 17, even 18 Celsius. Then we go into Thursday night with a mixed bag. Clear spells for many, but some showery rain about. And Friday starts off fine, but there's an active weather front moving in from the west, bringing us better wet weather. That clears away for Saturday, where it's mostly dry for most.
Expect warm spells, with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win your entire Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Well, just another quiet news day, isn't it? Good afternoon, it's 3 p.m, and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's astonishing show. A manhunt has been launched after a second migrant was mistakenly released from prison just days after sex attacker Hadesh Kabasu went free. The Justice Secretary, David Lammy, said he was absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release after he refused to answer multiple questions, 5 times, in fact, on this exact topic at today's PMQs. Throughout the show, we'll bring you all the very latest on this manhunt and this HMP insanity. How many times on this show have we said the lunatics have taken over the asylum system? Now have the pillocks taken over the prison system? Seriously, how can you make such repeated errors. 262 mistaken releases in this past year and 2 in this past fortnight of foreign offenders. Many watching this show will believe they shouldn't even be in our prison system in the first place. And the detail just gets worse. A week ago, this individual was released. The old bill weren't told for 6 days. What happened? Did they just not notice? Or did they just try and cover something up? And what about the absolute farcical scenes at PMQs today? James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary, standing in for Kemi Badenoch 5 times. He asked David Lammy the question about somebody being released. We've got fresh information from Catherine Forster coming our way because the Tories knew in advance of PMQs they went for the kill, but they didn't quite get David Lammy. Why not? What a missed opportunity. And where is this individual? No clue, not a Scooby-Doo where he is. Chances are he's actually gone back to Algeria. The first prisoner who's deported himself. We've absolutely lost the plot. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But that's time for your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Well, as you've been hearing, a manhunt is underway after another man was mistakenly released from prison in London. The 24-year-old Algerian man was wrongly freed from Wandsworth Prison in southwest London on the 29th of October, but the error was not reported to police until almost a week later. It's understood the prisoner is not an asylum seeker, but was serving time for trespass and has previously committed sexual offences. It is the second blunder in less than 2 weeks after convicted sex offender Hadoush Kabatu was accidentally released from Chelmsford Prison. The revelation broke as David Lammy was facing a grilling at Prime Minister's questions. Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge demanded to know if any more prisoners had been wrongly released.
He needs to take responsibility, and I'm asking him a straight question. And I'm going to repeat it once more for the avoidance of doubt, because he didn't answer it twice. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
Well, David Lammy dodged the questions, instead accusing the Conservatives of leaving Britain's prison system in chaos.
They left our prisons on the brink of collapse entirely, threatening to allow offenders to run wild on our streets. He knows that. Rape victims waiting years for their day in court. He knows that. Neighbourhood policing decimated, leaving our people feeling unsafe in their communities, and they haven't learned a thing.
We now know that David Lammy was informed overnight about the accidental release, but prison sources say it would have been irresponsible for him to discuss it during PMQs, describing the case as incredibly complex and involving multiple agencies with details still emerging. Downing Street has called the incident utterly unacceptable, saying the circumstances will be forensically examined as part of Dame Lynn Owen's review into wrongful releases. The Conservatives have branded the latest blunder shocking, accusing the government of losing control of Britain's prisons. David Lammy has said he is absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistake, confirming an urgent manhunt is underway and vowing to leave no stone unturned in fixing what he calls deeper flaws in the criminal justice system. Elsewhere, a migrant who crossed the Channel twice has been deported to France again, just weeks after being sent back under the government's one-in, one-out scheme. The Iranian man was first removed in September but made a second small boat crossing in October before being detained immediately after arrival using biometric data. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said his removal shows the system is working, warning anyone who tries to re-enter the UK after deportation that you'll be sent back. So far, 94 migrants have been returned to France under the pilot deal, while 57 people have arrived in the UK through legal routes. In other news, ministers are under pressure over which taxes could go up in just a few weeks' time after Chancellor Rachel Reeves warned that everyone will have to contribute to fixing the economy. She's refused to repeat Labour's promise from the election not to raise income tax, national insurance or VAT, sparking speculation those taxes could now be on the table in her budget on the 26th of November. Experts say she needs to fill a £50 billion gap in the public finances, and some think tanks believe a 2p rise in income tax may be likely. But the Tories say she should quit if she breaks her word. Shadow Business Secretary Andrew Griffith blames the Chancellor for the crippling economy.
There's no economy on the planet that's taxed its way to success. We all understand that we need a safety net in society, but what you really need is economic growth. You need the government off people's backs.
In France, 2 people are in intensive care and several others have been injured after a driver ploughed into pedestrians and cyclists on the island of Oloron. The French Interior Minister says a man in his 30s has been arrested after allegedly shouting Allahu Akbar as he was detained. Prosecutors say the suspect, a French national known for minor offences like theft, resisted arrest before being subdued with a stun gun. Authorities say the motive remains unclear and anti-terror investigators are not currently involved. Elsewhere, at least 9 people have been killed after a cargo plane crashed near Louisville Airport in Kentucky, bursting into flames shortly after taking off. The UPS aircraft was fueled by more than 38,000 gallons of jet fuel, sending thick smoke across the city. The Governor, Andy Bashir, called the crash catastrophic and he's urged residents to seek shelter. Air crash investigators are arriving today to determine what caused this tragedy. And Donald Trump says election results in the US aren't good for Republicans after Democrats sweep the first major elections of his second term. Zohran Mamdani wins the New York City mayoral race, and Democrats also clinched key governor races in Virginia and New Jersey. 34-year-old Mamdani becomes the New York City's first Muslim mayor and youngest person in over a century to lead the largest city in the US. In a victory speech, Mamdani said, "In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light." With Donald Trump marking a year since his re-election, brushed off the defeats on Truth Social. But in his victory speech, Mamdani told cheering supporters the nation's been betrayed by Donald Trump.
Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
And those are the latest headlines. For now, it's back to Martin.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Tatiana. Well, today there's only one story in town. Of course, we begin with the extraordinary news that a manhunt has been launched after a second migrant has been mistaken released from a British prison. Just days, of course, after the sex attacker Hadush Kabato simply walked free. Well, let's now speak with GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, live from outside HMP Wandsworth. Charlie Peters, of course, HMP Wandsworth has a checker past itself. Daniel Khalif strapped himself to a wagon and got away from there in 2023. And now a second huge embarrassment, simply walked out. An Algerian national. What do we know so far?
Well, Martin, there are serious questions here for the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, about what he knew and when, and why it's taken so long for this information to be released into the public. Because, of course, earlier today, David Lammy in PMQs resisting questions from the Shadow Defence Secretary, James Cartledge, who clearly knew about this case or something about it, pressing him 5 times to confirm if another incident like the release of Hadush Kabato had occurred since. He sort of stonewalled that question, resisted engaging with it directly, and then news emerged practically right after the conclusion of PMQs that it had happened again. That this 24-year-old Algerian convicted sex offender for indecent exposure, who was serving prison time in HMP Wandsworth for intent to steal and trespassing, he had been accidentally released last Wednesday. We don't know how long the sentence was. We don't know his name. We don't have a picture of him, but a manhunt is on. And isn't that curious, Martin, that while the Metropolitan Police who were only informed about this yesterday at 1 p.m, are playing catch-up with the authorities, desperate, we understand clearly, to get a sense of where this 24-year-old Algerian might be. We, the public, don't know anything about him, just his age and his nationality, and also senior sources have told GB News that he is not an asylum seeker. We've also been told by the Ministry of Justice that David Lammy was informed of this case last night. The Justice Secretary said that his officials had been working on it overnight and that Lammy was receiving updates while he was in the Commons about this case. Now, Justice sources told me about an hour ago that one of the reasons why David Lammy wasn't able, the DPM, to provide information is because it was such a complex case involving multiple agencies and he was still receiving information at the time. And so it would be potentially unhelpful or difficult for him to provide updates in such a scenario. But of course, this is a manhunt, Martin. There is a migrant sex offender on the loose who was released from prison accidentally a week ago. So the onus, from the view of many people, especially locals in Wandsworth we've been speaking to reacting to this news, should be on transparency, especially, Martin, when we think about the fact that Hadush Kabatu was identified by a member of the public. That led to his arrest, him being returned to custody and eventually deported via a £500 payment, of course, before. That all was achieved because the Metropolitan Police were permitted to go on an extensive campaign involving officers also from Essex Police and the British Transport Police, but also they were providing information. When he was spotted in Dalston Library on the Friday night, they provided that image of him carrying a tote bag in that grey tracksuit. We don't know anything about this 24-year-old who's been on the run for a week now. Now, speaking to locals in Wandsworth over the last hour or so since we got here, some said that while they feel safe about having the prison in their backyard because of sort of the focus and the security it provides, they are a bit distressed about the recent news of prisoners being released early. I just want to bring you the line I heard from one elderly lady who's speaking to me very recently. She said she'd lived here for nearly 30 years. She said she now worries when the police helicopter goes up that there might be a prisoner hiding in the shed in her garden because she doesn't know if people are being released in the proper, orderly fashion. An Algerian sex offender is on the run. We don't know his name, we don't know what he looks like, but the Met are leading an urgent investigation.
You know, Charlie Peters, I think a lot of people listen to this are in a mix of either laughing or crying, just in a state of abject and utter disbelief that we can be facing this utter farce once again. Thank you very much for joining us, Charlie Peters. We're coming back to you throughout the rest of the show. I'm joined in the studio by Catherine Forster and by Nigel Nelson today. But before that, at PMQs earlier, the Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge repeatedly questioned David Lammy on whether any other asylum seeker had been mistakenly released from prison since Hadush Kabatu, and take a listen to his responses.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
Of course I apologise, and I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
I know I'm the Justice Secretary, that's why I'm at the dispatch box, also as Deputy Prime Minister.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
I've got to tell you, I spent 14 years in opposition, and I did a hell of a lot better than he's just done.
Since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison. Can he answer the question?
I'm looking forward to being up against the member for Newark next time.
So now the pantomime of this should haunt David Lammy. And after all of this nonsense, look at what happened next.
Speaker, just to be clear, the Telegraph are reporting that a police manhunt has been launched for a second asylum seeker. mistakenly freed from prison. The question is, Mr. Speaker, how can you advise me on how I can ask the Justice Secretary whether he was aware of this when I asked him about it repeatedly in Prime Minister's question?
OK, well, for full analysis of what is another massive scandal and embarrassment for the Labour Party, I'm joined in the studio today by GB News' political correspondent Catherine Forster. And as it's Wednesday, 3 hours of arguing with GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Let's start with you, Catherine Forster. Just to point out, by the way, we believe that this Algerian national is not an asylum seeker. Like that matters. It's just another foreign wrong-un. Let's put that to one side. And let's get to a really, really important question. Did David Lammy know about this case before PMQs? And if so, why didn't he answer the question when it was put to him 5 blooming times?
Well, we now know that David Lammy, yes, absolutely did know. He was told last night. He was apparently being briefed on the situation right up until PMQs this lunchtime. Of course, I was watching PMQs in the chamber. I'd never seen anything like it, and it all makes sense now. But I'm just in the break between shows, just off the phone from somebody in the Conservatives, very close to James Cartledge, and what was going on. And they told me that basically they knew that the story was coming, but they only had sort of 15 minutes notice before PMQs that it was likely to drop during Prime Minister's question. So they made the decision to go on that. But they said to me, we thought that David Lammy might preempt it by standing up and giving a statement saying, look, this is what's happening. Somebody else has been released accidentally. This is what we're doing about it. They half expected that to happen. When it didn't, they asked the same question again and again and again, 5 times. OK, they used the word asylum seeking, and we're told that that was not correct. But a foreign migrant who's accidentally been released from jail. David Lammy was absolutely furious and so pointedly did not answer the question at any point at all, because we now know...
What's Lammy got to be furious about?
The
public's furious.
Because
if he knew someone was on the run and refused to answer the question 5 times, we're the ones who are furious.
Sure, but the government's argument is that they are inheriting the chaos that 14 years of Conservatives
this fellow was released last Wednesday. Nothing to do with the Conservatives.
But anyway, Martin, so there's all of that. And then in the last few minutes, the Times are now reporting that David Lammy indeed did have a pre-prepared statement that was ready to go on the accidental release of the migrant sex offender as he stood at the dispatch box, that it expressed outrage on behalf of the victims, criticised the Tories, but he didn't use it, and we're told he didn't use it because he didn't want to preempt a statement from the Metropolitan Police. So instead of just getting out there at the beginning and saying, this has happened, I have to tell the House this, and this is what we're doing about it, he made the decision not to. He was then asked 5 times by James Cartledge, didn't want to answer, and then, of course, at the end, we have this point of order where James Cartledge says the Telegraph are just reporting, and now all these questions about why David Lammy just didn't fess up.
David Lammy did know. He had a pre-prepared statement. He chose not to read it out, and he chose not to answer a question 5 times. That's astonishing. Thank you very much, Catherine Forster. Let's move on to my next guest now. I'll speak with the former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Metropolitan Police, Kevin Hurley. Kevin, another calamity in the British justice system. We're almost getting used to these now, but we should never be used to them. We should never accept this. Where do we even begin? Let's start with the notion that this Algerian wrong-un was released last Wednesday, and the police didn't find out for a week. How on earth could that happen? OK, Kevin seems to be frozen in time there. We'll get back to Kevin in a minute. Let's bring you in, Nigel Nelson. Let's go back to the politics on this. I was communicating with you when PMQs was on. I was communicating with MPs during PMQs, and we all knew, right, Cartledge has got something. Yeah. He knows something is going on, and the fact he's asked that question 5 times shows he knows something, and David Lammy chose not to answer the question. Now we know he not only knew about it, he had a pre-prepared statement about it. So why on earth did David Lammy not answer the blooming question?
Very good question. What David Lammy says is it would have been irresponsible to go into any details while a police inquiry was going on. I don't buy that.
No.
I think that's
I don't think anybody watching the show would buy that.
What it came down to, I mean, both David Lammy and James Cartledge were probably, as Catherine just said, it's probably the most atrocious Prime Minister's questions I've ever seen. But James Cartledge asked the wrong question. So what he asked David Lammy was whether the public could be reassured that nobody has been released since Kabatu. Well, obviously, Lammy, knowing what he knew, couldn't make that assurance, so he didn't answer the question. So he didn't mislead the House, he just avoided the question completely.
So the correct question was, has a foreign national been released since Kabatu?
Exactly.
Yes or no? So if you asked him that, he'd have got him.
Yes, because at that point, Lammy would definitely have had to answer the question.
Right.
Whether he would have gone for his pre-prepared statement or whatever, but he doesn't have to go into details. All he says is, yes, that someone has been. Give as many details as he possibly could to MPs without prejudicing the police investigation. But there was no reason why he should not have done that.
He could have said at that point, yes, I regret to inform you a second foreign national has been released. I can't go into details at the moment because it's a multi-complex
Yeah,
but nevertheless, he would have had to have admitted, because he's not allowed to lie in Parliament under parliamentary oath. That's the point. He wasn't asked the right question. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
That's incredible. That is incredible. How can you ask a question 5 times and not ask the right question? There's so many questions to ask, and we're just getting started. Don't go anywhere. Hopefully we'll get back to Kevin Hurley. Catherine Forster, great. You're getting fresh political news off the line there. Let's get more of that throughout the rest of the show. We'll bring all the very latest on the manhunt that has been launched after a second migrant was mistakenly released from prison just days after sex attacker Hadesh Kabatu simply walked free. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 3 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, we begin, of course, with the extraordinary news today that a manhunt has been launched after a second migrant has now been mistakenly released from a British prison. Just days, of course, after child sex attacker Hadesh Kabatu simply walked free. Let's now speak with the former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Metropolitan Police, Kevin Hurley. Kevin, a pleasure to have your company. So many questions. Let's start at the beginning. How can it possibly be the case that somebody simply walked out of a nick a week ago and the police didn't find out about it for a week?
Yeah, it's stupefying that this actually happened. All I can say is that the prison service has been run into the ground in terms of staffing, in terms of facilities, in terms of retention. So I think this is just the net result of when you, for 14 years, disinvest in the prison. Bottom line is, yes, David Lammy was caught napping today, but unfortunately, it's the party that were giving him a hard time who created this debacle. Ministers like Gove and Grayling, when they had the purse strings, they're the ones that have resulted in such poor security at times of release in prison.
All right, Kev, let's get now onto the manhunt. A week has been lost on a manhunt. That's got to be the worst enemy of any copper trying to find any fugitive. You've simply lost a week. You could be chasing shadows. Why, Kevin Hurley, have the authorities not released a mugshot, a name of this individual? If I live in the area, the immediate area, we've already heard there from Charlie Peters saying an elderly resident of Wandsworth is terrified a sex offender could be hiding in her shed. Why on earth haven't we got a mugshot and a name of a wanted villain?
Yeah, it defies belief, actually, because the minimum you would expect is to put the picture out of this particular guy. But when you think about it, we already knew earlier this year the best part of 300 have been released by mistake. So this, tragically, sadly, this is just de rigueur for the kind of thing that's going on because of the investment in the prisons estate. But you are right. I don't know why they haven't released a mugshot.
So Kevin Hurley, let's now get on to the tough 30-point plan that David Lammy introduced after Hadesh Kabatu, a child sex offender, simply strolled out of Nick. That clearly wasn't worth the paper it was written on.
Well, in fairness, it's probably just about, the ink's probably just about dry. And if they're going to get their plan together, I suspect it's going to take a little bit more than a couple of weeks. I mean, how do you recruit hundreds of more prison officers and improve the checks and balances overnight? This problem has not just kind of happened. It's just we've had, if you like, the controversy over Kabatu. But this is, I hate to keep repeating it, but this is all the fault of the Conservative government, that they wouldn't listen when they were told that the prison estate was falling to pieces and they couldn't retain staff.
Yeah, but Kevin, with the greatest respect, I hear what you're saying. There is heritage and history to any problem of today. But this inmate was released last week. The Conservatives aren't in power. They haven't been in power for well over a year. The buck stops with the Labour government. The buck surely today stops with the Justice Secretary, David Lammy.
Well, ultimately, yes, it does, because they're the ones who are in power. The issue I wonder is, how did it take so long to find out? I mean, it's just amazing, actually. But then, of course, I suspect with a sense of panic, oh, my God, not another one. Who do we tell next? But, I mean, frankly, I can't add much to this other than your sense of being stupefied at how poorly the prisons appear to be being run. It's quite alarming, And, of course, there's this guy, a burglar, now out on the loose.
Well, he's a burglar, he's a sex pest, he's got sex offenders, heritage, you know, he could be anywhere. He could be anywhere in Britain, he could be hiding in your hedge, he could be in Algeria. It's utterly farcical and dangerous. Thank you very much, former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Met, Kevin Hurley. Apologies there, we had a bit of poor audio on Kevin's line. Nigel Nelson, This won't go away. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And the net outcome of all of this is that the British public will simply believe nobody knows what they're doing and our streets are increasingly unsafe.
Well, I mean, certainly if you've got people being released by accident and they're ending up on the streets, there is a strong chance it does make the streets more unsafe. I think Kevin did have a point about the constant running down of the prison service has contributed to this. It doesn't excuse exactly what happened in this case, but it has been going on. I mean, there are 57,000 prisoners who get released every year, which works out about 2 a minute across the country, which shows how complicated it must be to get that right. But even so, the important thing is, like on something like this, when potentially violent people are being let go, it's really important to get it right.
Do you think the public are going to buy the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy's release a statement? I am absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release of a foreign criminal wanted by the police. The Metropolitan Police is leading an urgent manhunt, and my officials have been working through the night to take him back to prison. So he admits there he knew through the night. If he knew through the night, he knew at PMQs today. He had absolutely no excuse to not answer those questions and let the public know what's going on so the public can feel safe, especially if they live anywhere near that nick in Wandsworth.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't think he could release the details, because quite clearly that there are very few details at the moment. But what he could have done is say that this has happened. I'd imagine he could have said a 24-year-old Algerian has been accidentally released. He doesn't have to go into any more details because he is still being briefed. I understand that. What he could do is not try and dodge the question 5 times.
Roger Nelson, we'll discuss this no doubt throughout the rest of the show. I'm just absolutely lost for words. Utterly lost for words at the state of this nation. Lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including Red Wall Rottweiler Lee Anderson. He'll be joining me in the studio for his take on this manhunt for yet another mistakenly released foreign prisoner. But first, it's time for your latest news headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. Yes, that breaking story today that a manhunt's underway after another man was mistakenly released from prison in London. The 24-year-old Algerian man was wrongly freed from Wandsworth prison in southwest London on the 29th of October, but the error wasn't reported to police until nearly a week later. David Lammy says he's absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistake, confirming an urgent manhunt's underway and vowing to leave no stone unturned in fixing what he calls deeper flaws in the criminal justice system. A migrant who crossed the Channel twice has been deported to France again, just weeks after being sent back under the government's one-in, one-out scheme. The Iranian man was first removed in September but made a second small boat crossing in October before being detained immediately after arrival using biometric data. In France, 2 people are in intensive care and several others injured after a driver ploughed into pedestrians and cyclists on the island of Oloron. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Breaking news now. Speak with GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters live from HMP Wandsworth. Charlie, you got an update for us, a major one. Tell us more.
Yes, Martin. Well, a senior source has confirmed to my colleague, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, that the Algerian sex offender mistakenly released from this prison, Wandsworth prison, is Brahim Kader Sharif. He has links to the East London area, and of course he remains at large. That being told to GB News by a senior source in government that the Algerian migrant who, the 24-year-old who was mistakenly released from Wandsworth prison, is called Brahim Kader Sharif, with links to East London. He was released from this prison in error on October the 29th, but the error was only reported to the Metropolitan Police yesterday around 1 p.m. There are now serious questions for the government and indeed for the Prisons and Probation Service as to why it took them nearly a full week for the information to be relayed to the Metropolitan Police about that accidental release, especially after the Justice Secretary David Lammy had said that more stringent checks had been introduced in his statement after Hadush Kebatu, the Ethiopian asylum seeker sex offender, had also been accidentally released early from HMP Chelmsford. Mr. Kebatu was of course captured within 48 hours, rearrested after a member of the public saw him near Finsbury Park in North London. But today we're only just getting this information about the name of this 24-year-old convict Algerian national who has previously been convicted, it's understood, for a indecent exposure offence, but was serving time behind bars here at this Category B prison in South London for trespassing with intent to steal. Now, we're only getting that information now from a senior source in government, and there are also further questions for David Lammy about what he knew and when, and why it's taking so long for more information to be released about this sex offender who is at large. Because, Martin, of course, when Hadush Kebatu was accidentally released, we very quickly had full details shared to us by Essex Police, by the Metropolitan Police and British Transport Police about the state of their investigation. Mugshots were distributed, and the public were urged to get in touch if they had information. But earlier today at PMQs, the Justice Secretary David Lammy resisted questions from the Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge about whether or not a similar incident had occurred. Now, Justice sources speaking to me earlier this afternoon said that the reason why David Lammy didn't give a more fulsome update on this or answer that question at all was because it's a very complex scenario involving multiple agencies, and also that David Lammy was still being updated at the time. But still, I mean, I think members of the public will think as well, David Lammy could have provided an update at PMQs just to say that they were aware that another foreign offender had been released accidentally and that he was still gathering information. We're still waiting for that photo and for a full description about where this foreign offender might be. But the breaking news that we can bring you now, Martin, is that his name is Brahim Kadur Sharif and he has links to the East London area.
Thank you, Charlie Peters, for that crucial update. Maybe a mugshot will follow. Just repeat that. It's Brahim Kadur Sharif, 24, with links to East London. Well, even though he's been released a week ago, maybe East London might be the first port of call for the police to try and find him. Let's now speak with the Epping resident, Orla Minahan. Orla, welcome to the show. Here we go again. Another one has been set free. Of course, Hadush Kebatu was the Ethiopian sex offender that precipitated all the hotel protests in Epping, where you're from, a child sex offender. It was bad enough that happened, and yet here we go again.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't know, Martin, whether or not this government understand what it is like to be a member of the public at this time. It is terrifying. Every morning we wake up, stabbings, murders, sex offence, rapes, and now to make it worse, the people that are committing these crimes are being let out accidentally. Over and over, you know, this is the second time. Now, this happened over 6 days ago, and now you've just confirmed that this man has links to East London. Great. So now everybody in East London and, you know, our part of Essex are more terrified than they've been previously. You know, this cannot go on. The government are clearly completely out of control. The prison system, we've heard for years, is creaking at the seams. So why are we, the question, you know, is why are we keeping these foreign nationals and these illegal migrants in our prisons when we can barely cope with the people that we've got who are British citizens? You know, this is just not sustainable. Everybody I speak to is walking on eggshells. They're terrified to let their children go to school. They're terrified to go to work themselves. They won't walk their dogs. You know, look at the poor man that was stabbed to death last week, which we've had radio silence about. You know, I don't recognise this country anymore, Martin. It's absolutely terrifying.
Orla, let's be very careful when we talk about live cases. That was an alleged stabbing. Let's just stay on point, please, if we can. This is quite serious enough as it is, Orla. Let's refer to what happened. An elderly resident, this is what gets me the most, and I know it will you too. An elderly resident in the Wandsworth area just told Charlie Peters that every time a helicopter goes by in her area, she now fears there could be a sex offender or a killer hiding in her shed. That's where we're at, right?
That's where we're at. You know, I've said this many, many times. We are going to end up like South Africa. In South Africa, you know, I spent many years there working. You cannot live unless you live behind gated community. You can't go into shops unless they're gated and they've got security. We are going to end up in the same situation in this country if the government do not get a grip of our law and order and our judicial system. It is out of control, and everyone feels the same.
OK, Orla Minahan, I can hear the emotion in your voice. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Epping resident Orla Minahan, thank you very much. Now I'm joined in the studio, hot-footing it from PMQs earlier on, and that's the Reform UK Chief Whip and the MP for Ashfield, Lee Anderson. Lee, let's start, if I could, just with your initial reaction. Here we go again. Another foreign offender, foreign sex offender, simply walk free into British streets.
I know, it's we're not shocked though, are we, Martin? Again, another sex monster prowling our streets, released early. They keep saying by accident. It's incompetence. I mean, what are they doing with these prisoners, Martin, when they're giving them a set of keys? I mean, they're just walking out the jail. I mean, back in the day, you used to dig a tunnel to get out of prison. Or try and break out. Nowadays, it appears you just walk up to reception or a prison guard and then you're on your bike, you're gone. And like Orla just said, we're turning into a country now where it's not safe to walk our streets. And this country should never be like that. But when you see the incompetence, not just in the prison service, but at the highest level in government as well. We saw David Lammy today at the dispatch box. He was asked 6 times by James Cartledge, has anybody been released by accident over the past week or so? He refused to answer. Now, I thought James was a little bit weak at PMQs. The first question was great. The second question, he should have knocked him out with the second question and said, are you aware there is a prisoner now on the loose? Then he's got him, and then he's got to start answering questions. He squirmed, did Lammy, but he got off the hook. Yeah. And the only thing that James did right at the end of PMQs is raise a point of order. He read off his phone, I think it was a Telegraph article or Sky News, that actually we had got this sex monster on the loose somewhere in London.
Lee, in the time it took you to walk over, we've heard more information. That is, we had confirmation, the Times reported this, and we've had it confirmed by Catherine Fawcett, our political correspondent, that David Lammy not only knew about this before PMQs, he had a pre-prepared statement ready to go. He chose not to put that out. Yeah. But you're exactly right. If he'd been asked the correct question, yes or no, has a second foreign national been released from prison, he would have had to have said yes, otherwise he'd been lying under parliamentary oath, right?
Yeah, it was incredibly weak from the Tory frontbench today. They could have nailed him on the second question, and all James did was keep asking the same question. We're sat there on the back benches actually pulling our hair out saying, why does he keep asking the same question? What does he know? Has it happened? And yes, he knew it had happened. Lammy knew it had happened. So on the second question, he should have gone for the throat. And you know what? Lammy would have been embarrassed. And like you say, he would have to either admit it or deny it. And if he denied it, then he's lying in Parliament.
They're blaming the Conservatives. They're blaming previous errors. They're blaming a lack of funding.
Let's put it on Brexit while we're at it, shall we?
Yeah, they're going to blame everything and anything. I'm surprised they haven't blamed Nigel Farage yet. But the book has to stop with the government in power. The book surely has to stop with the Justice Minister, David Lammy.
Yeah, he should have made a statement. He should, you know, there's no reason, I don't think, why he could not made a brief statement before PMQs today. And that for him, would have knocked it straight in the head. But like I say, James Cartledge come with 6 questions. First question's fine. Second question should have been the killer question, but it dragged on and on and on. And basically, we sat here now talking about something, what we knew had happened all along.
How do you think the British public are going to take this news? What do you think they're going to make of our political class, of our inability to control our prisons? I mean, I find it heartbreaking when I hear, Lee Anderson, that pensioners are now terrified there could be a sex offender hiding in their sheds.
Yeah, it's terrifying, Martin. I mean, you know, like I said before, nobody should feel unsafe in this country walking the streets or sat at home watching TV or whatever they're doing. But it just seems that this government, and they can blame the previous government all they want. Yes, they made mistakes, they made lots of mistakes, but they're in power. They've been in power for 18 months, and we've seen in the last 2 weeks, 2 of these sex attackers just walk out of prison. I mean, what are we playing at? Seriously.
Nigel Nelson, we hear a lot of platitudes from the Liberal left, from media commentators. Oh, you know, don't worry, crime's not actually that bad in Britain. But the trouble is, the perception is the crime is getting out of control. Violent crime is getting out of control, and the number of people walking out of prison, 262, that's a 115% increase year on year. You can't blame the Tories for that. This feels like a country...
Well, you can, in fact, because the Tories were in power when it started to go up. So those figures you're quoting go up to March this year. And then, obviously, it's been going up since 24 when they were in power.
But all of this points to a country simply spinning out of control.
Well, I don't think one prisoner disappearing shows the country spinning out of control.
Well,
I do think
two foreign sex offenders from the same nick where Daniel Khalif simply strapped himself to a wagon and he got out.
I do think that this is an appalling case and that an urgent investigation needs to happen about how he got out, why the police weren't informed.
There's already an urgent inquiry into Kabatu. That's going to take 8 weeks. What are we going to learn we don't already know?
What I'm saying to you is, let's keep it in perspective, that we're talking about one guy who's got out. Let's hope he's recaptured fairly quickly. But I don't think people should be suddenly terribly frightened because we've got one guy on the streets. What we need to do is make sure people aren't released.
This man's a sex offender. He attacks people for his own gratification. He's a dangerous...
Well, you're using plurals there. We know of one sex offence.
Man, and you're saying people shouldn't be alarmed. That's just completely ridiculous.
No, unduly alarmed. Unduly alarmed.
I'm alarmed for some of the elderly, the pensioners that's living in that area now who will be frightened to death to leave their house because this monster is out on the prowl.
OK, gentlemen.
There's no excuse.
Gentlemen, thank you for an impassioned exchange. We have to leave it there. Lee Anderson and Nigel Nelson now still to come. We'll bring you all the very latest on the continuing scandal, the manhunt that has been launched for a second mistakenly released prisoner, foreign prisoner, now named in this past 20 minutes. That's 24-year-old Brahim Kador Sharif, an Algerian national. But for now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heavy downpours likely over the northeast of Spain and southern France over the course of Thursday. Some showery rain also for the Greek islands, particularly Corfu. Much of Italy looking fine with some autumn sunshine in Rome. There's that heavy rain just clearing away from Barcelona, but bringing some downpours to the south of France. Showery rain also clearing away from the Balearics. Much of southern Spain dry and sunny. Small chance of a shower or two over the Canaries. They should be clearing away as we head into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Sumo is a fantastically simple sport to win. There's only really two win conditions. You either drive your opponent out of the doyo, the ring, or you take them to the ground. And when we say take them to the ground, any part of their body other than the soles of their feet which touches the ground, that counts as a loss. Now, how you do this can vary. It varies between wrestlers and their backgrounds and styles. Some will be more focused on the driving and the pushing. Some, particularly with the judo background, more focused on the throws. There is kind of a core of winning techniques, which we call kimarite, and they're kind of standard winning techniques. But realistically, any technique you use to get your opponent either out or down, you'll win the match.
But the two that we're seeing on the screen look actually quite lightweight sumos, because I've seen some really heavy sumos, but with that weight, they are incredibly flexible. Like the one earlier was doing the box splits. I mean, there he is. Look at that. That is not an easy... I'm training to do the box splits, and I can't do that. And look at him. He's going to roll all the way through as well. Rob, they're very fit, aren't they? But these ones look lighter.
So they are incredibly fit athletes, and I think one of the things people forget when they look at sumo or they look at Rikishi, is that they are athletes, you know, and to a degree, we're looking at two sumo wrestlers standing next to each other, and so they look normal size in comparison to each other. In terms of their body fat percentage, it's actually very, very low.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
10 to 4, return to that extraordinary news. A manhunt has now been launched after a second migrant was mistakenly released from prison. Let's now speak with the Labour activist Aisha Ali Khan. Aisha, here we go again. Another foreign wrong-un has been set free. We know the name, Brahim Kader Sharif, but a lot of people might be asking, why haven't we got a mugshot? We need to know what this guy looks like so we can apprehend him.
Absolutely, Martin. This is just such a shocking incident yet again, and honestly, it's quite baffling that the police weren't even made aware of what's happened almost a week later. And obviously the PMQs today as well, David Lammy kind of avoiding the question. It's just a series of blunders that are doing nothing to calm the public. And it's quite sad, actually. I was waiting to come on and I heard Lee and your guest as well talking about how people are really concerned. And they shouldn't live like this. Nobody should live like this. So we just want to get this guy found and for him to go back inside. Obviously, just want to point out something as well, Martin, that he was in prison right now for trespass with intent to steal, not for sexual offences, but he does have sexual offences. He has been convicted of previous sexual offences as well, which, I mean, it doesn't make it any better. It just...
I know. I mean, you are factually correct, but Aisha, the point is he has a history of sex offences, which shows he could do it again, and that's the point. The point that Lee Anderson was making and all of Minaheim before was that the British public look at stories like this and they feel that this is a country that's simply not in control of law and order.
Well, Martin, like your previous guest said as well, it's just an individual, and another one obviously just coming straight after the previous one. And 2 years later, after Daniel Khalif, the British soldier who was basically charged and eventually convicted of spying for Iran. So again, it doesn't help that these things are happening. Obviously, we had a viral video last year as well of an inmate having sex with one of the prison guards. And there was lots and lots of information in the news at the time. And I did some, obviously I spoke about this at the time. And if you actually look at Wandsworth, it is one of the oldest prisons. It's a Victorian prison, 1851. It was originally built for single occupancy. Now, those cells actually have more than one. They have 2 prisoners at a time. Massively overcrowded. They've got a massive issue with retention of prison staff. Right now, there's around 85...
They've got a massive problem with retention of their inmates. This geezer just walked out and Daniel Khalif strapped himself to a wagon and escaped.
Well, Martin, we need prison officers to help maintain law and order within prisons. And right now, there's only around 85 members of staff compared to about 1,500 inmates, which is actually a staggering number. And these prisoners are being kept in these conditions. Sometimes they get less than 2 hours to be able to go and do things. We need to shut it down, basically.
Aisha, we've run out of time, but thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time. Still to come, more of the very latest on the extraordinary manhunt for this individual now, Brahim Kader Sharif, 24, an Algerian national, simply vanished into Britain. Don't go anywhere.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is an exceptionally mild bonfire night for most of us. Rain in some places, particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland, but for many parts of the UK it is actually drier than the last few days. That's because we're in between systems. We've got low pressure still sitting to the south, maintaining this mild southerly breeze, but it's tending to push the rain into Scotland and Northern Ireland, and even where the rain ends up, there will be some gaps in the cloud and the rain, so not raining all evening. A few bits and bobs of rain out towards the far west, otherwise mostly dry with clear spells for bonfire night, and by the time we get to dawn, even at this stage, temperatures are still in the teens fairly widely across the country, so certainly not a cold night. And as we start off Thursday, yes, a lot of cloud cover around, but there will be some sunny spells in one or two spots, particularly northeast Scotland, for example. Outbreaks of rain at this stage clearing Shetland, staying damp through central and western Scotland, but the rain on and off. Likewise for Northern Ireland. A few light showers, but a lot of dry weather as well, despite the largely cloudy skies. We've got some more showers developing during the morning across England and Wales, especially West Wales, parts of Cornwall, where there will be some heavy downpours starting to emerge, and an area of showers pushing through parts of the Midlands, the south and southeast of England. So Thursday's a day of mixed weather, but it's not as wet as previous days. There is a lot of dry and fine weather out there, plenty of sunshine in the east and some emerging sunshine into the southwest as well as parts of Wales, in between a few showers. But it's another very mild day with lighter winds compared with the last few days, temperatures of 17, even 18 Celsius. Then we go into Thursday night with a mixed bag. Clear spells for many, but some showery rain about. And Friday starts off fine, but there's an active weather front moving in from the west, bringing us better wet weather. That clears away for Saturday, where it's mostly dry for most.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic disruptions affect routes nationwide. The A1M northbound in Doncaster and the M60 anti-clockwise at Junction 4 in Stockport face delays due to roadworks, each with one lane closed. In Leicestershire, the M1 southbound between junctions 23A and 23 has 2 lanes shut. Motorists in Solihull should avoid the M42 northbound as lanes are closed between junctions 5 and 6. The M25 clockwise entry slip at junction 16 in Buckinghamshire is unusable. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. And we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's just another quiet news day in modern Britain. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. There's only one story, of course, on today's show, and it's this. A manhunt has been launched after a second migrant, this one called Brahim Kader Sharif, was mistakenly released from prison just days after the Ethiopian child sex offender Hadesh Kabatu was also mistakenly set free. And the Justice Secretary David Lammy said he was absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release, but he refused to answer multiple questions on this exact topic 5 times, in fact, today at Prime Minister's Questions. Throughout the show, we'll bring you all the very latest on this manhunt. Well, to show, it's a pleasure to have your company. Here we go again, just 2 weeks after the mistaken release of Kabatu, of course, an Ethiopian who'd come to the country illegally on a dinghy just a week before sexually molesting a 14-year-old girl, a child, in Epping. He was simply wandered out of a prison. It's all happening again. This time, HMP Wandsworth. We've found now the name in this past hour, Brahim Kader Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian national. He was in jail for trespassing with intent to steal, but does have previous sexual offences for exposing himself. Where's the mugshot? Why did it take a week for this individual to even be noticed or for the police to be informed he'd gone missing? We just spoke with Charlie Peters at HMP Wandsworth, who's spoken with a pensioner in the area, who's saying every time she hears a police helicopter in the air, she expects there to be a sex offender hiding in her shed. The country is out of control. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. The 24-year-old Algerian man mistakenly released from prison in London has been named as Brahim Kader Sharif. He was wrongly freed from Wandsworth Prison in southwest London on the 29th of October, but the error wasn't reported to police until nearly a week later. It's understood he is not an asylum seeker, but was serving time for trespass and has previously committed sexual offences. It's the second blunder in less than 2 weeks after convicted sex offender Hadesh Kabatu was accidentally released from Chelmsford Prison. The news broke after Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge pressed Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy in the Commons on whether any asylum seekers had been mistakenly released since Hadesh Kabatu last month. Mr Lammy dodged the questions, instead accusing the Conservatives of leaving Britain's prison system in chaos.
They left our prisons on the brink of collapse entirely, threatening to allow offenders to run wild on our streets. He knows that. Rape victims waiting years for their day in court. He knows that. Neighbourhood policing decimated, leaving our people feeling unsafe in their communities, and they haven't learned a thing.
Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp has called Mr Lammy's actions disgraceful.
The Deputy Prime Minister gave disgraceful answers. He, in my view, was dishonest with Parliament and with the country, because we're now told that as he was asked 5 times about the mistaken release of foreign offenders, he had in his folder, in his papers, a briefing about this man, this Algerian man, who was mistakenly released 6 days ago from Wandsworth Prison. And instead of being honest with the public and honest with Parliament and telling us about that, instead, he chose to hide it, he chose to shout, he chose to bluster, instead of being straightforward and honest. So I think, I'm afraid, the Deputy Prime Minister's performance at PMQs today was nothing short of disgraceful.
Prison sources say it would have been irresponsible for David Lammy to discuss the situation during PMQs despite being informed about it overnight. They described the case as incredibly complex and involving multiple agencies with details still emerging. Downing Street has called the incident utterly unacceptable, saying the circumstances will be forensically examined as part of Dame Lynn Owen's review into wrongful releases. David Lammy says he's absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistake, confirming an urgent manhunt's underway and vows to leave no stone unturned in fixing what he calls deeper flaws in the criminal justice system. Elsewhere, a migrant who crossed the Channel twice has been deported to France again, just weeks after being sent back under the government's one-in, one-out scheme. The Iranian man was first removed in September, but he made a second small boat crossing in October before being detained immediately after arrival using biometric data. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says his removal shows the system is working, warning anyone who tries to re-enter the UK after deportation will be sent back. So far, 94 migrants have been returned to France under the pilot deal, while 57 people have arrived in the UK through legal routes. The head of the broadcasting regulator Ofcom has told the BBC chairman that he must seriously examine allegations of bias, censorship and doctoring uncovered by The Telegraph. Well, it comes as MPs are set to hold crisis talks over alleged BBC bias on Donald Trump and the Gaza war. The committee chair, Dame Carolyn Dinenage, says the revelations are extremely worrying and have serious questions for the broadcaster. A whistleblower memo claims BBC Arabic minimised Israeli suffering and raced allegations against Israel to air. It also alleges a panorama edit misled viewers by splicing a Donald Trump speech that showed the president urging supporters to fight like hell when he actually said to march peacefully and patriotically.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
In France, 2 people are in intensive care and several others injured after a driver ploughed into pedestrians and cyclists on the island of Oloron. The French Interior Minister says a man in his 30s has been arrested after allegedly shouting Allahu Akbar as he was detained. Prosecutors say the suspect, a French national known for minor offences like theft, resisted arrest before being subdued with a stun gun. Authorities say the motive remains unclear and anti-terror investigators are not currently involved. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. Only one story in town today. We begin, of course, with the extraordinary news that a manhunt has been launched after a second migrant was mistakenly released from prison. Just days, of course, after child sex attacker Hadesh Kabatu simply walked free. Let's listen now to what the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, had to say about David Lammy's handling of the incident at PMQs earlier.
The Deputy Prime Minister gave disgraceful answers. He, in my view, was dishonest with Parliament and with the country, because we're now told that as he was asked 5 times about the mistaken release of foreign offenders, he had in his folder, in his papers, a briefing about this man, this Algerian man, who was mistakenly released 6 days ago from Wandsworth Prison. And instead of being honest with the public and honest with Parliament and telling us about that, instead, he chose to hide it, he chose to shout, he chose to bluster, instead of being straightforward and honest. So I think, I'm afraid, the Deputy Prime Minister's performance at PMQs today was nothing short of disgraceful.
Specifically, though, he was asked about whether an asylum seeker had been released, and the man who was released was not an asylum seeker.
I think that is dancing on the head of a pin. Clearly, the release of a foreign national criminal, a man with previous sex offences, is relevant. It is germane to the question that was asked, and despite the fact David Lammy was standing there with the briefing notes in his folder, he chose not to tell the public and Parliament. Instead, he shouted and he blustered. He hid the truth. He was dishonest with Parliament and dishonest with the public.
When did your party know about this release?
I'm afraid I don't know exactly when we found out about that. I'm not even sure we knew for certain at all. I'd have to ask one of my colleagues to find out. I'm afraid I just don't know.
Yeah, let's cross live now to HMP Wandsworth, the scene of the crime, as it were. We'll speak with GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie Peters, we have a name in this past hour, but here's the question. Why no mugshot? There's a wrong 'un at large. The people deserve to know what this guy looks like.
Yes, Martin, as you say, the scene of the crime 1 week on, because of course the Metropolitan Police were only informed about this accidental release of this Algerian national, 24-year-old convicted sex offender 6 days after his accidental release last Wednesday. Serious questions as to how the probation and the prison service were able to not only make that mistake but not realise it for so long. And also that accidental release coming just 2 days after the Justice Secretary David Lammy reassured the public, in his words, that more stringent measures were now in place to prevent the accidental release of prisoners after Hadush Kabatu, the Ethiopian Epping sex offender, had been accidentally released from HMP Chelmsford. He's now since been deported, paid £500 in taxpayers' money to help sort out and smooth over any potential legal blockages, it's been reported, to that deportation. But we do have a name for the man who was released accidentally from this Category B prison in South London last week, and the name is Brahim Kadur Sharif, previously linked to an address in East London, and of course he remains at large, Martin. Now we understand, because Justice sources told GB News about a few hours ago now, that the Justice Secretary was aware of this case last night. It's highly likely he would have been given the details about the man's age, his nationality, his name and his offence. The prison service would have known, of course, because they informed the police at 1 o'clock. So the question is, Martin, why has it taken until now, with senior sources in government confirming the name, rather than the government coming out openly and helping to support this manhunt being launched by the Metropolitan Police? There's every possibility, is there not, Martin, that in the last overnight and in the last sort of 24 hours since the police were informed, that a member of the public could have spotted this man. And of course, that was how Hadush Kabatu was rearrested just under 2 weeks ago in Finsbury Park on that Sunday, because a member of the public recognised him when he was in that park. Police rushed to the scene very quickly, arrested him, took him back into custody and put him on a flight out of the country. Because we haven't got the full details about this man, no mugshots or picture in the public domain as it stands, the ability for the public to support this manhunt being led by the Metropolitan Police is being hampered. And then there's the further question, Martin, that you've raised about what David Lammy knew when he was at the dispatch box earlier. Well, Justice sources told us that David Lammy could not give an update because it was such a complex investigation involving several agencies, and that because he was still gathering details and he was still being updated on the process, it would not be right for him to inform the House. We've heard criticism of that, of course, Martin. Many people saying, actually, what would be right would be transparency, would be openness, especially as we now know, confirmed by our political correspondent Catherine Forster, that he already had a pre-prepared statement ready at the dispatch box before that took place. Lots of questions for the Justice Secretary as this manhunt continues on that 24-year-old Algerian who was accidentally released from this Victorian prison last week.
Thank you, Charlie Peters there, live from HMP Wandsworth. A calamity, another national embarrassment. Thank you very, very much. Well, let's now speak with the former Metropolitan Police officer and the author, Graham Wetton. Graham, welcome to the show. Where do we begin? Let's start with the facts. How on earth could this have happened a week ago and the old bill weren't told for 6 days? 6 crucial days, precious days, to try and apprehend this wrong-un.
Yeah, after me, Martin, that is crucial. That's such a long time period for someone to have a head start when you're then looking for them. The phrase manhunt takes on a different context than when you're spending 6 days playing catch up. So no idea why it's taken that long for the prison authorities to let the police know. Huge task now for policing. Literally, he could be anywhere in the country, or even have left the country by now, because normal practice is when someone is notified to the police as having either been released inadvertently or escaped, you can then put their details onto the police national computer, onto passenger lists, etc. So you almost put like a stop on them being able to travel that far afield. That's been 6 days now before the police could do anything at all, or even knew about this individual being at large in the community. So there is a manhunt going on. The police will be doing their best, gathering in information from the prison authorities, looking at details of when he was arrested, addresses, visits, that sort of thing that's gone on, and maybe try and check some of those addresses to see if he's gone to any of the known places. But huge task for them now.
So, Graham Wetton, I'm putting it to you, right, as a former Met police officer, it's now the Met's job, that's the patch, to try and apprehend Brahim Kadir Sharif. They've lost a week in the process, that's disastrous. But I want to ask you specifically, how come we've got a name but we haven't yet got a mugshot? Surely the public, don't forget that Kabatu wasn't caught by the police, he was spotted by the public. The public have far more ears, far more eyes, and they deserve the right to know what this person looks like to keep themselves and their communities safe. Why on earth haven't we had a picture of this guy yet?
It normally depends on risk to the public. So without knowing what his previous convictions are, is there a significant risk to the public? Plus the fact you have to balance the fact, if you put an image out there, you're inevitably going to get some false sightings, because that could be, as we just said, 6 days now. You could literally be anywhere in the country, not just within London, but anywhere at all. So police services across the country could have endless sightings of him from, dare I say it, from Scotland down to Land's End. So it literally is a huge task. You have to balance that with the information you've got and whether the police are liable or able to locate him in a reasonable period of time. There will come a point where the balance then is we actually need the public's help with their, as you said, eyes and ears, their eyes open to look for him. But you also need a likeness, a decent likeness. So depending how long ago he was convicted, was the custody image, is that a relevant likeness to what he is now? Because people change their appearance in custody. So is his recent appearance matched that of the custody image? It's no point putting out a custody image if he's now got like a full beard and long hair, whatever. So the balance there comes with the image that you hold. Is that a reasonable likeness of the individual you're looking for? If it is, then you decide to put it out there. If it isn't, you've got other avenues to follow.
Graham Wetton, there's a grim irony in the fact there's an Algerian national who many people believe probably should have been deported anyway, rather than serving any time in a British jail, because of that 6 crucial lost days. He might have deported himself. He might have left the country. And then there's not a damn thing we can do about it.
No, absolutely. No, he could easily have left the country in 6 days. I'm not sure his immigration status has been confirmed yet. I'm waiting for that from the police and the prison authorities, how long he's been here, etc. But you're quite right. He could easily have left the country in 6 days. So, again, are we ever going to locate him and take him back into custody?
Graham Wetton, it's an abject and utter farce, a national embarrassment. Thank you very much for joining us. Not you, the story. Thank you very much, Graham Wetton. You're superb as ever. I'm joined in the studio by GB News' political correspondent Catherine Forster, and also by GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Catherine Forster, let's start with you. The knives are severely out now for David Lammy. You've revealed to us in the previous hour he clearly knew. He had a statement prepared on this topic. He was asked 5 times about it at PMQs. He didn't know, he wouldn't give a clear answer. Chris Philp now saying Lammy was dishonest with Parliament.
Yes, he is saying that, dishonest with Parliament and the country. That's the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, has said that. It was an extraordinary Prime Minister's questions. I've never seen anything like it. For one reason, the same question was repeated 5 times and very obviously not answered. But also, David Lammy was so angry, visibly so angry, throwing blame on the Conservatives, and sure, they must take their share of blame for underfunding prisons, but furious. And now we know why the Conservatives went on this. I'm told by somebody close to James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary, that they only found out about 15 minutes before that this story was likely to drop during Prime Minister's questions, which is why they went on this. They also told me that they thought quite likely David Lammy would come and begin with a statement to sort of head it off at the pass, say, look, this is the situation. So they were sort of expecting that, but he didn't. And now it's also been reported that David Lammy, yes, he was told about it last night. Yes, he was being briefed about it right up until PMQs, but that he actually had a pre-prepared statement ready if the story had dropped. but he had chosen not to use it, which begs the question, why, when you know this story is coming, when you know it's going to look awful for the government, why not just get ahead of it? And at the very beginning, the Prime Minister did something similar a few weeks ago, at the very beginning, made a statement to say, this is what's happening, this is what we are doing about it. He didn't do that. He failed to answer these questions, and now there are many saying, you know, did he mislead the House of Commons? If he did, that's extremely serious.
And Catherine Forster, pictures on your screen now, we can just see this. It's been completely lost in the wash now today because of this greater scandal, but David Lammy there was in hot water because he turned up for his first PMQs as a new Deputy PM without wearing a poppy. On the Wednesday before, of course, Armistice. There's a huge show of disrespect. He had to be handed a poppy by one of his ministers.
Yes. He said in the chamber, this weekend is Remembrance Sunday and we will never forget those who fought to defend our freedom. But he himself, his first Prime Minister's questions, had forgotten to put a poppy on, a symbol that we all wear. The House of Commons was full of people wearing poppies. He had a very important job today. He didn't have a poppy. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, I think tried to give him one, and he ended up getting one about 20 minutes in or so from Labour MP Calvin Bailey, who is an RAF veteran. So he began with no poppy, he ended with a poppy, but it was noticed, it was picked up, it was commented on, and I think, yeah, sure, it was an oversight, but really it's pretty poor, I think many people will think.
Nigel Nelson, all of this just adds to that perhaps unflattering nickname now that David Lammy seems to have, Calamity Lammy.
Well, I mean, certainly this particular case is a calamity. I'm not sure that it's a calamity in the House of Commons today. What Chris failed to mention was how James Cartledge was so useless at asking the questions that he should have done. And he could have got the information out of David Lammy by making it more simple and asking him if there was a migrant who'd been accidentally released.
OK, take a deep breath. We've got some more breaking news for you now. HMP Wandsworth has released another prisoner in error. HMP Wandsworth has released another prisoner in error. On Monday, the 3rd of November, 35-year-old William Smith, who also goes by the name of Billy, was released by accident. Smith was sentenced to 45 months for multiple fraud offences at Croydon Crown Court. On the same day, he was released. He's described as white, bald and clean-shaven. Well, how about we get a description for this individual, Brahim Kader Sharif? Well, Surrey police have said this. Smith was last seen wearing a navy long-sleeve jumper with the Nike brand tick across the front in white, navy blue tracksuit bottoms, also with a Nike tick in white on the left pocket, and black trainers. He has links to Woking, but could be anywhere in Surrey. Police asked anyone with information to contact them. It just gets worse. Catherine, not one, but two announcements on the same day from the same Nick. Two inmates mistaken released within days of each other.
Just when you think you couldn't make it up, I'm sort of, it's my job to find words. I'm sort of speechless at this. And bear in mind that after the release of Kabatu, David Lammy introduced tougher measures which enhanced checks which were designed to stop exactly this sort of thing happening again. And it was only 2 days after those checks were supposedly introduced that this man that we now have a name of, Brahim Kader Sharif, was accidentally let out of Wandsworth on the 29th of October. We didn't find the Met Police didn't know about this for nearly a week till yesterday. Who knows where he is? And now we're hearing that at the same prison, yet another one.
OK, let's cross live now again to the scene of the crime, HMP Wandsworth. I speak with GBNews national reporter Charlie Beaters. Charlie, just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it has got worse.
Martin, the gate keeps opening here at HMP Wandsworth, and I'm almost nervous about who might be released next, because we're hearing now from Surrey Police that they're now saying that another offender was released in error on Monday. There's a police presence here as well at HMP Wandsworth now, Martin, because we're now learning that 35-year-old William Smith, goes by the name Billy, was released in error on Monday at this Category B prison, and that Surrey police are carrying out a number of inquiries to try and locate him. He was sentenced to 45 months in prison for multiple fraud offences at Croydon Crown Court on the very same day that he was also released in error. He appeared from HMP Wandsworth via a video feed for that sentencing, which is a common process for ensuring prisoners are able to attend the several court hearings that are expected. They can't often get prisoners to the relevant courts that they need them to, especially if prisoners are in prisons that are far away from the courts where their trial is being heard. But he is described as white, bald and clean-shaven. William Billy Smith, last seen wearing a navy long-sleeve jumper with the Nike brand tick across the front
middle-aged men in Britain.
white, and also a navy blue tracksuit bottoms with a navy tick in white on the left pocket. Martin, I think I heard you say, sounds like every middle-aged person in Britain. Well, yes, indeed. But at least with this man, Martin, we have a mugshot, because he was sentenced on Monday. Surrey police very helpfully and transparently producing an image of this man. By contrast, when it comes to the accidental early release of this Algerian offender, there is very limited information about what he looks like. There's none at all, let's be frank. Brahim Kadur Sharif, previously linked to an address in East London, he remains at large. He was released last week. The Metropolitan Police only be informed about this yesterday. Their manhunt is ongoing. But we do know that the Justice Secretary, because Justice sources told GB News about this, the Justice Secretary David Lammy was informed about the early release of Kadur Sharif last night, knew about it with further updates today, but did not bring information to the House, even though he had a pre-prepared statement. So as it stands, Martin, the prison behind me, this Category B, one of the biggest prisons in the country, HMP Wandsworth, has accidentally released 2 prisoners in a week early, despite the Justice Secretary saying that the most stringent checks were now in place 2 days after another offender was accidentally released early, and that was, of course, Hadush Kibatu, now deported back to Ethiopia. This is a real crisis for the government.
Johnny Peters, you want to watch your back there, mate, because they might come out the door doing a conga in a minute. I mean, anything is possible at that place. It's calamity cops. The pillocks have taken over the prison. I'm sorry to use that word, but what else can you say? This is like 2 in one day. We'll have much more reaction to this story throughout the rest of the show. Our jaws are on our desks here in GB News HQ in Westminster. Manhunt has been launched, a second manhunt, the first one. 24-year-old Brahim Kadur Sharif, and now William Billy Smith. 2 cons at large, 1 prison, 1 day. You couldn't make it up. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, it's 4:30. Well, elsewhere, apart from the madness in Britain, today marks 1 year since President Donald Trump thrashed Kamala Harris in the race to the White House. But some are still protesting his second term at a Trump must go now demonstration. Let's cross live now to GB News presenter Ben Leo, who's at the protest in Washington, D.C. Ben Leo, welcome to the show. What are they protesting about? Are they lost?
Yeah, they did lose. It was a year ago today, of course, Martin. Good morning, well, good afternoon, rather, to Brits back home in the UK. A lovely day here in Washington. We're at the Washington Monument, and the sun is shining. I have to say, I'm not sure what the weather is like back in Blighty, but if I'm making you jealous, apologies. Maybe that's why so many people are here and not working. There's, I reckon, about 1,000 people here today protesting Trump. So one of the flyers here says, Trump must go now, flood DC. We must drive the Trump fascist regime from power. Hello there, what's your name?
Eldrith.
Eldrith, thank you for speaking to us. You just handed me a flyer here. Why are you here today? What's going on?
Well, it's a kickoff to get massive participation in the movement to oust the Trump regime and to fill this city with people and to sort of try to stop one-off protests and have people stay here and keep on coming out day after day after day.
Okay.
To create a huge presence here.
So you want Trump out of power?
Definitely.
How supposed to do that? Logistically, what does that look like?
Well, there's a number of ways to go about it.
Such as?
The 25th Amendment. There's putting pressure on political parties to do the right thing. There's getting more and more people. I mean, popular opinion is important, and if we had millions of people in Washington, D.C. clogging up this city and bringing business to a close, to a close, it would put pressure on the whole administration, and I think that's what our goal is.
But what, I mean, logistically, practically, what does it look like? You want them to call an election, for example?
Well,
because
I think
the lady over there is talking about overthrowing the administration. I mean, talking of fascism, that sounds pretty fascist.
Well, we're not talking about overthrowing. We're talking about ousting the Trump administration as not being representative of any American values whatsoever.
One more question. This leaflet here is all about fascism and calling Trump a fascist. Is the definition of fascism not a single-party state, no?
Well, it's becoming a single. He wants it to be a single-party state. He wants it to be the Trump party. He's using the army and the military as his own personal...
the Democrats last night had big election success, no? In New York, Virginia.
That's true.
So you got two parties.
But I think
so how's that fascism?
I think that we shouldn't be too too sanguine about things just because the Democrats happen to win some governorships in different states.
So it's not a one-party state?
Right now, it's still a two-party state.
Okay,
but
so it's not fascism?
Well, that's not necessarily true. If the party that's in power and the Trump party wants to be the only power, wants to...
But he's not the only power, is he? If the Dems won big elections last night, he's not the only power.
Well, if you want to let me answer the question instead of interrupting me every time I get started, I would appreciate it. Their goal is to eliminate the competition. Their goal, I believe, is to eliminate all the parties but the Trump party. And I think he's shown that he's willing to flout the rule of law. He's willing to have masked agents dropping out of helicopters and arresting the whole population in a building, zip tying children together, zip tying grandparents together. This is the kind of activity that fascists are engaged in.
Okay, thank you very much. It was Obama who put kids in cages now as well. Thank you for your time, appreciate it. Martin, there we go. Come back to us in the next hour or so. I think it's going to be kicking off. There's a very good band playing, singing anti-fascist tunes. But yeah, interesting premise. They call him a fascist, they call him a dictator, but the primary definition of fascism is a single-party state. And it was only last night that Daubney, the Democrat, won in New York. The Dems had big election success in Virginia as well. So have your criticism of Trump all you like, but when you use language such as fascism, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, Ben Leo, I don't know what's in that guy's flask, but if I were you, I'd stay away from it. Thank you very much for joining us there, Ben Leo, live at that protest in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the studio because we've got, I believe, some more. We have a picture, is that right? Have we got that ready to go? We have a picture. We've got a picture of we've got a mugshot. I've been saying for the whole show, why haven't we got a mugshot of Brahim Kader Sharif, the 24-year-old Algerian? And look, here comes one. This is William Billy Smith. This is the guy who was released from the same Nick, released from Wandsworth on Monday, we believe, the same day that he was actually sent down. 45 months he got for multiple counts of fraud, we believe. So we've got a mugshot of one of the pair of them released from Wandsworth. That's William Billy Smith. You can see there a white guy with a beard and a balding head. And we also heard he's got a penchant for Nike tracksuits, or like most people, working class lads in Britain. Still no details, though, of Brahim Kader Sharif. No mugshot, no explanation, no description of what he looks like, what he wears, where he goes. I mean, a lot of people might say that is blatant two-tier policing again. How come we got one mugshot but not another? Catherine Forster, before the break, all of us here were simply staggered that this calamity can be unfolding. Two prisoners, the same jail, 1 week.
Takes quite a lot for us to be lost for words, doesn't it, Martin? But yes, and so here we have already Surrey Police putting out this mugshot. Can you help us find this wanted person? William Billy Smith, and it says that he was jailed for 45 months, supposedly, for fraud offences. He was sentenced on Monday. This was via video link, so he was already in HMP Wandsworth on the Monday when he was sentenced. And yet, somehow, it seems to be that he was released accidentally the same day. I think I'm going mad, actually. I think I'm going mad. But so here we have another one. And yet this man, Brahim Kader Sharif, it took a few hours to get his name. He has been on the loose since last Wednesday, the 29th of October. The Met Police didn't even have wind of this till yesterday. The Justice Secretary, Deputy Prime Minister, knew about this last night. We still haven't got a photo of him. He's had a week to go who knows where. We have no clue. And clearly, the public can help with this. We need to see who he is. That picture needs to be out there.
You're exactly right. Brahim Kader Sharif, the Scarlet Pimpernel, simply vanished. No mugshot, no details, still at large. Astonishing. Loads more still to come between now and 5 p.m, including much more reaction to the madness going on with people being wrongfully released from prison. It's HMP insanity. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is an exceptionally mild bonfire night for most of us. Rain in some places, particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland, but for many parts of the UK it is actually drier than the last few days. That's because we're in between systems. We've got low pressure still sitting to the south, maintaining this mild southerly breeze, but it's tending to push the rain into Scotland and Northern Ireland, and even where the rain ends up, there will be some gaps in the cloud and the rain, so not raining all evening. A few bits and bobs of rain out towards the far west, otherwise mostly dry with clear spells for bonfire night, and by the time we get to dawn, even at this stage, temperatures are still in the teens fairly widely across the country, so certainly not a cold night. And as we start off Thursday, yes, a lot of cloud cover around, but there will be some sunny spells in one or two spots, particularly northeast Scotland, for example. Outbreaks of rain at this stage clearing Shetland, staying damp through central and western Scotland, but the rain on and off. Likewise for Northern Ireland. A few light showers, but a lot of dry weather as well, despite the largely cloudy skies. We've got some more showers developing during the morning across England and Wales, especially West Wales, parts of Cornwall, where there will be some heavy downpours starting to emerge, and an area of showers pushing through parts of the Midlands, the south and southeast of England. So Thursday's a day of mixed weather, but it's not as wet as previous days. There is a lot of dry and fine weather out there, plenty of sunshine in the east and some emerging sunshine into the southwest as well as parts of Wales, in between a few showers. But it's another very mild day with lighter winds compared with the last few days, temperatures of 17, even 18 Celsius. Then we go into Thursday night with a mixed bag. Clear spells for many, but some showery rain about. And Friday starts off fine, but there's an active weather front moving in from the west, bringing us better wet weather. That clears away for Saturday, where it's mostly dry for most.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say. Because when you talk, we listen.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Cheshire East, the M56 eastbound has one lane closed due to a collision, with normal conditions expected later this evening. In Kent, an incident on the A20 eastbound between the A223 and the M25 has led to closures but should clear shortly. Expect weight restrictions for vehicles above 7.5 tonnes on the M48. In South Gloucestershire, lane closures remain on the M4 westbound entry slip at junction 20 due to an accident. On the trains, Transport for Wales advises against travel between Landrindod and Swansea. And there is also disruption between Wrexham Central and Bidston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back, 4:40. Well, on a day of astonishing breaking news, we've got some more for you. Let's get straight back now to HMP Wandsworth and speak with GB News national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie Borders, Peters, you got some big news for us. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right, Martin. Brahim Kadur Sharif, the Algerian sex offender prisoner accidentally released from this prison, HMP Wandsworth, last week, was a visa overstayer. This is just coming to us now. We've been told by senior sources that the Algerian sex offender prisoner accidentally released from this Category B prison last week was a visa overstayer. Now, we understand that Karim Sharif Badur entered the country legally on a visit visa in 2019, but then overstayed their visa. An automatic overstayer case was then created in 2020, and we're also being told by government sources that he was in the initial stages of the deportation process. But of course, Martin, as it stands, he is a foreign national offender on the loose at large, facing a Metropolitan Police manhunt after he was released accidentally from this prison last week. Now, under the Borders Act, any foreign national who receives a custodial sentence of 12 months or more is automatically deported. But we're learning now, of course, from these government sources that he was already in the country as a visa overstayer, so would have been subject to those deportation orders as well. He remains at large, but the Metropolitan Police has launched that manhunt.
Charlie Peters, on a day of incredible news, it just keeps coming thick and fast. Charlie Peters, don't go anywhere. Somebody else might come out that door behind you in a minute. Thank you, Charlie Peters, joining us there from HMP Wandsworth. Gets back to the studio. I'm delighted to say I'm joined in Westminster by the Shadow Minister of State for Policing and Crime, Matt Vickers. Matt, welcome to the studio. Can I get your immediate reaction to what is a quite incredible day? Brahim Kadir Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian, we now learn was a visa overstayer. Why on earth was he even in the country?
Well, it's stunning, isn't it? I mean, it would be laughable, but it's actually horrifying to think that our justice system is in such turmoil, such turbulence, utter incompetence that these people are being released left, right and centre. And there's all, how long does it take to get out of the government? The guy was here illegally. He shouldn't have been here any longer. They're not removing these people. It is an utter car crash. And it would be funny were it not for the fact that this is sending a certain message to criminals across the globe, not just in Britain. And also, what does it say to the victims of that sex offence, the victims of fraud and whatever? I mean, these people expect a justice system that's on their side. Clearly, the government is stupidly incompetent. It was mad when they started releasing all these people early. But actually, it doesn't matter if you're on the early release list because they're letting everybody out. It's infuriating, it's devastating for victims. And then to see the utter shambles that happened at PMQs earlier, where apparently David Lammy knew all about it, but was unwilling to say. What does that say about the government? That it's willing to stand at the dispatch box and pretend nothing to see here. Again, devastating, actually.
David Lammy, we understand, not only knew about this case in full, but he had a statement pre-prepared to read out. He chose not to read that out. And when he was asked by James Cartledge, your colleague, Shadow Defence, decided to dodge that question 5 times. It's worth pointing out in the case of Brahim Kadir Sharif, of course, if he overstayed his visa from 2020, that's when the Conservatives were in power, he wasn't deported for 5 years. So, yeah, this has happened under the Labour watch, but it also underlines the fact that people who come in through the front door but then overstay, we still can't kick them out.
I mean, you've seen, the early release scheme was the start of it. It's got worse now with the guidelines from the Sentencing Council that is going to see rapists, sex offenders, paedophiles let out of prison. Some people now, some of these criminals that they're allowing out early, will serve less than a third of their sentence behind bars. And those people with less than a 12-month sentence, well, they're getting the get-out-of-jail-free card. They're not even going to prison. It is a disaster. And that's the people who the prison service has managed to keep a hold of. It is a car crash, an absolute disaster.
Matt Vickers, Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, said that David Lammy was dishonest with Parliament. Would you go further? Is it time for David Lammy to go?
I think, do you know what, anybody sat at home who now knows the fact that this man who had overstayed his visa, who shouldn't have been in the country, David Lammy apparently knew before he got to that dispatch box what had happened. Yet he stood there in front of the great British public, in front of Parliament, and failed to fess up. Anybody watching that will make their own judgments about what the sincerity and the honesty of that man when he stood at that dispatch box and failed to answer the questions about what is actually a really devastating situation for the public.
OK, thank you very much for joining us. Matt Vickers, that's the Shadow Minister of State for Policing and Crime. Thanks, Matt. If it's some holiday sun this year, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heavy downpours likely over the northeast of Spain and southern France over the course of Thursday. Some showery rain also for the Greek islands, particularly Corfu. Much of Italy looking fine with some autumn sunshine in Rome. There's that heavy rain just clearing away from Barcelona, but bringing some downpours to the south of France. Showery rain also clearing away from the Balearics. Much of southern Spain dry and sunny. Small chance of a shower or two over the Canaries. They should be clearing away as we head into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Some schools are banning birthday cakes from the classroom.
Yeah, banning parents from sports. And now the great headline in the Telegraph, Labour puts the knife into nursery birthday cake. Apparently, new guidelines for the Department of Education are saying that you should not send your child into school with a cake when it's their birthday, because it's bad for them, it's going to make them fat, all the rest of this stuff. It's the nanny state once again on the march, isn't it?
Is this a new thing? Because I don't remember ever taking a birthday cake.
Oh, yeah, we
my
did.
birthday.
Yeah, we did too.
Took a birthday cake.
And I think some schools I've seen that have a fake birthday cake, which is not nearly as nice, with a fake cake with a candle on, so you sing happy birthday and blow out the candle. But, you know, I love the way Jacob Rees-Mogg...
oh, yes.
European GB News presenter has waded into this row saying, well, my children's nanny sends little cakes into school for all the children.
Absolutely.
He said
the nanny sends them in.
nanny sends them in.
wow.
Only
Nannies
socialists
know what is acceptable and what isn't.
He says only socialists want to stop such innocent pleasures. And I think there's a real point about that. One school, actually, Broxburn Primary in Harrow, is saying, don't send your child in with a cake. Donate a book to the school library instead. I mean, that is just not a good substitute, is it?
Cakes?
No, my kids are 1 and 3, so they're not quite at that age yet. But
It'll happen.
It does it. I mean, it should, because
But it doesn't have to be a big splodgy cake. It can just be something.
But even if it's a bit of a treat, there's no way the calories of school birthday cake are the calories
make a
making
difference.
people fat.
No. Exactly.
So we should focus on the big issues rather than ruining this fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a killjoy. I think kids should have a bit of fun. I just didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah,
it's all changed since my day.
I think maybe it's the teachers who don't like the sugar rush the kids get afterwards, and they can't keep control in the classroom.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 to 5, you're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Well, I'm joined in the studio today by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, we have to just go over this astonishing incompetence, whatever you want to call it, about today. 1 nick, HMP Wandsworth, 2 mistaken releases, 1 week. The first one, Brahim Kader Sharif, 24-year-old Algerian national. We've since found out in this past 20 minutes, a visa overstayer. Came here legally, was here illegally, and had been here illegally for 5 years. The second inmates released mistakenly, William Billy Smith. He was in Nick for 45 months. He thought he got released on the same day he was sentenced.
Yeah, got 45 seconds.
Yeah, right. Gone in 45 seconds. We got a mugshot straight away of William Billy Smith. And we now, I believe, we have got a mugshot. We've just got a mugshot. Let's get to that now. There it is. We've been asking for this all afternoon. The first police mugshot on your screens now. There he is. Brahim Kader Sharif. This is the 24-year-old Algerian wanted by the police. 6 days after he was mistaken released, the police were told he's now been at large for 1 week on British streets. We found out earlier in the show he was linked to an address in East London. And we also have this second mugshot. Let's get that one up now. This is of William Billy Smith, also released from HMP Wandsworth. That we knew a lot about him. We were told he was bald, he had a beard. We were told he had a blue tracksuit with a white Nike logo on. We were told everything apart from the fact he likes fish and chips. We hardly got any information on Brahim Kader Sharif. Let's get that back on there now. And I was saying earlier on to you, Nigel Nelson, this felt like blatant two-tier policing. If you've got a man at large with a heritage of sex crime, which is what precisely Brahim Kader Sharif has, the public deserve to know what he looks like. It's taken them hours and hours to release this. Actually, it's taken them a week. It's ridiculous.
Yes, I mean, I don't think it's two-tier policing. If it's anything, it's two-tier incompetence. I mean, that's what it sounds like. And certainly HMP Wandsworth is going to have a lot of questions to answer. What we should have now is the HM Inspector of Prisons getting round to Wandsworth as soon as possible and putting in special measures. If they keep releasing people on the basis you shouldn't be released, then there's obviously something severely wrong with the prison system there.
Just to remind you, if you're tuning in, that is the first police mugshot released of a national manhunt, potentially an international manhunt, for Brahim Kader Sharif, a 24-year-old Algerian national, we've learned this afternoon, came into the United Kingdom perfectly legally, came in through the front door in 2019 on a visitor's visa. He overstayed that, and there was a call on him in 2020, a case against him for overstaying his visa. 5 years later, he ends up in prison, having committed at least 2 crimes that we know of. The one he was jailed for, trespassing with intent to steal, previous sexual exposure in public. This guy's a wrong-un. He's a foreign wrong-un. He's on our streets. He could have fled the country. We don't know where he is. They seek him there. They seek him there. They seek Brahim Kader Sharif everywhere. But we have now had a mugshot, finally, of him in these past few moments. And what has been a quite astonishing day in Britain, the total collapse, it seems, of our prison system. There he is, Britain's most wanted foreign criminal at the moment, Brahim Kader Sharif. If you see him, if you know where he is, get in touch with the Metropolitan Police. They might put him back in HMP Wandsworth for a few days. Stay tuned.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is an exceptionally mild bonfire night for most of us. Rain in some places, particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland, but for many parts of the UK it is actually drier than the last few days. That's because we're in between systems. We've got low pressure still sitting to the south, maintaining this mild southerly breeze, but it's tending to push the rain into Scotland and Northern Ireland, and even where the rain ends up, there will be some gaps in the cloud and the rain, so not raining all evening. A few bits and bobs of rain out towards the far west, otherwise mostly dry with clear spells for bonfire night, and by the time we get to dawn, even at this stage, temperatures are still in the teens fairly widely across the country, so certainly not a cold night. And as we start off Thursday, yes, a lot of cloud cover around, but there will be some sunny spells in 1 or 2 spots, particularly northeast Scotland, for example. Outbreaks of rain at this stage clearing Shetland, staying damp through central and western Scotland, but the rain on and off. Likewise for Northern Ireland. A few light showers, but a lot of dry weather as well, despite the largely cloudy skies. We've got some more showers developing during the morning across England and Wales, especially West Wales, parts of Cornwall, where there will be some heavy downpours starting to emerge, and an area of showers pushing through parts of the Midlands, the south and southeast of England. So Thursday's a day of mixed weather, but it's not as wet as previous days. There is a lot of dry and fine weather out there, plenty of sunshine in the east and some emerging sunshine into the southwest as well as parts of Wales. In between a few showers, but it's another very mild day with lighter winds compared with the last few days, temperatures of 17, even 18 Celsius. Then we go into Thursday night with a mixed bag. Clear spells for many, but some showery rain about. And Friday starts off fine, but there's an active weather front moving in from the west, bringing a spell of wet weather. That clears away for Saturday, where it's mostly dry for most.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There's a broken down vehicle on the A14 eastbound between junction 37 and junction 39 in Suffolk, with 2 out of 3 lanes closed, causing a delay of 40 minutes, expected to clear by 6:15 this evening. In Kent, An incident on the A20 eastbound between the junctions with the A223 and the M25 has resulted in lane closures. On the trains, Transport for Wales advises against travel between Landrindod and Swansea, and cross-country faces disruptions between Birmingham New Street and University. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're giving you the chance to win your entire Christmas this year paid for by us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very good afternoon and a happy bonfire night. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's show. Only one story in town today. A manhunt has been launched after a second migrant called Brahim Kader Sharif, who is also a visa overstayer, after he was mistakenly released from prison just days after child sex attacker Hadish Kabatu went free. And the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, said he was absolutely outraged and appalled by the mistaken release after he refused to answer multiple questions, 5 in fact, on this precise topic at PMQs earlier on today. And throughout the show, we'll bring all the latest on this astonishing calamity in the British justice system. Well, breaking news for you in this past hour. A second manhunt is also now underway. Surrey Police is appealing for help to find that man on your screens. That's 35-year-old William Billy Smith, after he was released in error from the same Nick. HMP Wandsworth. He was released on Monday. It's also come to light that Brahim Kader Sharif, the foreign prisoner who was also mistakenly released from HMP Wandsworth last Wednesday, was a visa overstayer. And there is the first mugshot of this individual. Let's go back now to GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters, literally at the scene of the crime there at HMP Wandsworth. Charlie Peters, for hours now we've been saying, where is the mugshot of Brahim Kader Sharif? Where is the detail? And now we know.
Finally, Martin, 6 days into this manhunt, we have the first bit of footage of Brahim Kader Sharif, also known, according to the Metropolitan Police, by Ibrahim, is known to use variations of his name. The Met say that they were informed of the release shortly after 1 p.m. yesterday and immediately deployed officers to begin a search. He's believed to have links to Tower Hamlets and is also known to frequent the Westminster area. So Martin, keep an eye open. Now, we are also being told by the Metropolitan Police that they are aware of reporting that Sharif is a registered sex offender, and they are now confirming that this is accurate. He was convicted, they say, in November of last year of indecent exposure relating to an incident last March. He was sentenced to an 18-month community order and placed on the sex offenders registry for 5 years as a consequence of that conviction. He was in prison here at HMP Wandsworth, this Category B prison, in relation to a conviction for trespassing with intent to steal. Now, we've heard from Commander Paul Trevors, who's overseeing the investigation, this manhunt into Mr. Kadur Sharif. Now, Commander Trevors has said it's just over 24 hours since they were informed of Sharif's release. We launched an immediate manhunt and urgent inquiries have been ongoing since. Well, Martin, the Metropolitan Police have also released the extraordinary footage of Brahim Kadur Sharif's arrest in September last month, the 9th of September, 2 months ago rather, of this year. It shows the moment he was arrested and also taken into a police custody van. Now, the commander from the Metropolitan Police has said that Sharif has had a 6-day head start, but we are working urgently to close the gap and establish his whereabouts. And I think, Martin, there is some implicit criticism of the prison service in that statement from the commander because, of course, we're being told that the Met were not informed of his early release, that accidental error in his early release, until yesterday, 6 days after it took place. But the commander said we will continue to use all the means at our disposal. But finally, here it comes, Martin, we are appealing for the public's help to find him. Now, the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, was informed of this case last night, but it has taken until, when did this note come through from the Met? 4:45 p.m. on Wednesday for them to issue this public appeal from the Met with footage of Sharif, and also this footage of his arrest in September this year. They've said anyone who sees Sharif is asked not to approach him, but to call 999 immediately. Now, Martin, when Hadush Kibatu, the migrant sex offender from Ethiopia, that asylum seeker who was staying at the Bell Hotel in Epping, when he was accidentally released a couple of weeks ago, an error was informed to Essex police very early on, within 90 minutes or so of his accidental release. And then the Sun newspaper broke that news later on that afternoon, and then the Metropolitan Police, Essex Police and British Transport Police all issuing their public appeals for information, and it was the public who helped identify and led to his arrest nearly 2 weeks ago now. But this is a rather different case because it has taken well over a week since his early release at this prison last week for that public appeal to be issued, because indecent exposure, sexual offence, convicted and given a community order, not a prison sentence, when he was convicted of that last November. Now, the 24-year-old Algerian convict, we're told, having links to the Tower Hamlets area and is also known to frequent Westminster. But after a week, Martin, he could have gone a very long way indeed. And because, of course, the Metropolitan Police were not informed of his release until yesterday, it's a realistic possibility that he could have left the country. We also learnt earlier this afternoon that he is a visa overstayer, with the police, the government sources rather, informing us that he is not an asylum seeker, but rather he entered the country legally on a visit visa in 2019, but had overstayed, and an automatic probable overstayer case was created for Mr. Sharif on the 6th of February 2020, so well over 5 years ago, but of course still in the country, has been through the justice system and has escaped, in a sense, the claws of justice again, on the run at the moment. Now, government sources told us earlier that Sharif was in the initial stages of the deportation process, but of course that's unable to progress while he has evaded the state's custody, as he has since he was accidentally released from those gates behind me last Wednesday. And of course, we're also hearing from Surrey Police that another prisoner was accidentally released from this location again on Monday. That was the 35-year-old William Smith, also goes by the name of Billy. He was released by accident, having been sentenced to 45 months in prison for various fraud offences at Croydon Crown Court on the very same day, Martin, that he was then released. He's been described as white, bald and clean-shaven, and Surrey Police have released a mugshot of William Billy Smith. He has links to Woking. He could be anywhere in Surrey, and police have asked people with information to contact them. So 2 large manhunt operations for accidentally released prisoners from this location, this Category B prison behind me, HMP Wandsworth. And the politics of this, Martin, of course, is devastating for this Labour government and for the Justice Secretary, David Lammy in particular, who 2 days after the retrieval of Hadush Kabatu and that accidental release at HMP Chelmsford was announcing the launch of an independent inquiry into that release and saying that the former head of the National Crime Agency, Dame Lynn Owens, would be leading that probe. He also said that more stringent checks had been introduced following his intervention and his leadership. But since those more stringent checks, Martin, which included a governor having specific oversight of the process, 2 more prisoners at least have accidentally been freed early ahead of their sentences expiring. So a manhunt in London, focusing, we expect, on the Tower Hamlets area, a manhunt in Surrey as well, and David Lammy being informed last night, we know, of this incident involving the Algerian national, but did not confirm to the House when asked earlier by Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge. Some criticism coming for the government now, Martin. Could they have been more transparent earlier? Could they have provided more information earlier? Because as was the case with Hadush Kabatu, the public's involvement is likely to be key in recapturing and rearresting this Algerian sex offender who's on the run.
Johnny Peters, is an absolutely staggering catalogue of calamity, incompetence and absurdity, and it's only Wednesday. I wouldn't go anywhere, Charlie Peters. You might get a conga coming out that door behind you in a minute. Charlie Peters, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on this incredible day. Well, I'm joined in the studio in Westminster now by the former Police and Crime Commissioner for Bedfordshire, and that's Festus Akinbusoy, and also GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Festus, let's get to you first. You were watching on there, listening in to Charlie Peters at HMP Wandsworth with a look of astonishment on your face. 2 inmates, 1 nick, 1 week, 2 mistaken releases, and the one that we've been talking about most today, Ibrahim now, Kader Sharif, 24, a visa overstayer, a registered sex offender on an 18-month community order for exposing himself. This individual, this scumbag, should not even have been in the country.
Correct. I mean, this is disgraceful, and you can understand why people, quite rightly, will be concerned and worried about this. And, you know, if I was the Home Secretary, I'll be saying right now, we are going to stop immediately all planned early releases until we can reassure the public that the system we have for releasing people early is actually fit for purpose. How on earth do you release someone who is a registered sex offender, who is, release them early? But actually, here's quite interesting that some of your listeners might want to be aware of. In the 12 months to March this year, there has been 262 early releases in error. That is nearly double the number for the previous 12 months, which probably coincides with the volume of people being released as part of the government's early release scheme. And I think right now, the government's going to have to do an awful lot of work to reassure the public that the stronger system that they were going to put in place a couple of weeks ago actually is in place and is working.
Well, the so-called stronger system isn't worth the paper it's written on. It's a chocolate teapot.
And as you said, it's only Wednesday.
Yeah.
Who knows what else is going to be released tomorrow that we do not know of yet. But this guy has had over a week now head start on the police. I mean, he could be anywhere for all you know. And desperate prisoners do desperate things. And it would be an absolute albatross around the neck of the government if any of these individuals end up committing a serious crime while they're on the run.
Festus, you can only hope and pray, with some degree of irony, that Ibrahim Kader Sharif might have cleared himself off back to Algeria. He might have deported himself in a way that the government patently has failed to do, by the way, for over 5 years. He could have simply swanned off anywhere on the planet.
That is correct. But I probably would guess he would be still in the UK at some point, somewhere, rather than in Algeria, where he originally came from. But this is a real public safety risk. And we can't keep having this happening again and again and again. And the government keeps expressing their concern and their disgust at what is happening. They are in charge. They need to get a grip of this, and they need to know. They need to let us know exactly what is happening, what is going wrong, and what they're going to do to fix it.
David Lammy is copping a lot of flack over this one, and perhaps it's unfair. He's earned the nickname Calamity Lammy. Robert Jenrick called him that earlier on. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has said that David Lammy was dishonest with Parliament. We learned this afternoon David Lammy not only knew about this case, he had a prepared statement to read out about this case before PMQs. He chose not to do that. Martin, do you think David Lammy has big questions to answer here?
Yeah, and at a time like this, it's just important for people in power to just be honest and transparent. Let the public know what you know, especially when there is no national security risk here. Let us know what you know, and let us know what you're doing to fix it. But to be hiding behind any kind of complications or complexities just fuels the sentiment that there is some kind of a cover-up, and why that cover-up might be in place. It's not helpful at all.
Festus, I'm going to ask you this question now. It's a difficult question to answer. It's a different question to even talk about, but we've seen now with Hadish Kabatu, foreign sex offender, mistaken release. We've seen now with Ibrahim Kader Sharif, foreign sex offender, early release. Is this going to happen again? Could this calamity, this chaos, become some new kind of normal?
I bet it will happen again. I'm just not sure if the government has got a grip on this issue. I'm not sure if they fully know what is happening on the ground within the prison system. The prison system itself is overwhelmed in terms of the numbers relative to the staff levels. In fact, at Wandsworth, there was a report published a couple of weeks ago, or months ago, that found that they did not even know the number of inmates that were at that prison. In some cases, they had only about 100 or so prison officers in place for about 1,000 inmates, because people were off sick, they were not available to work. So there were issues there. But it won't surprise me, if I'm honest with you, Martin, that something like this will happen again.
It's a grim warning, and do you know what? I think you're probably right. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Pleasure to have your company. Thanks for coming to see us in Westminster. That's the former Police and Crime Commissioner for Bedfordshire, Festus Akinbusoy. Thank you very much. Then let's speak with the former prison and justice journalist, David Shipley. David, welcome to the show. It's an absolute word I can't even use on national TV. I think you can guess it. It's a total and utter disgrace what's going on here. One nick, two cons, 1 week, and a system that feels completely and utterly unfit for purpose.
Yeah, it feels like that because it is unfit for purpose, and the leadership of the prison service are to blame here. We've got these two cases, both of them are ridiculous. The second one, Billy Smith, is particularly peculiar. This man attended his sentencing via video link from Wandsworth on Monday, got a sentence of 45 months, presumably walked out of the video suite in Wandsworth and then got released on the same day. We wondered, did he tell the staff, oh, they gave me a suspended sentence, and people just believed him? I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. And to make it even more laughable, Andy Davey, who's the governor of Wandsworth, is actually the man the prison service appointed to run their internal review into how Hadish Kabatu was released by mistake from Chelmsford. It's the blind leading the blind. It's absolutely appalling.
And this is the same nick, HMP Wandsworth, lest we forget, where Daniel Khalif simply strapped himself under a delivery wagon and vanished into London. Now, there's a heritage of failure at Wandsworth. No doubt politicians will say, it's decades of underinvestment, it's the Conservatives' fault, and there is a lot of truth in that, but the blame game has to stop. What on earth do we do to sort this mess out, David?
I think often people blame lack of money, lack of staffing, old crumbling buildings, all this sort of stuff. But actually, There's a systemic failure, and the failure is in the leadership of the prison service. They are overseeing a prison system which is failing to keep people in jail who are supposed to be in jail. That's the basic and most fundamental job. And then failing to tell the police for 6 days, you know, leaving this man to walk around London for nearly a week. Absolutely appalling. And actually what needs to happen is the government needs to get a grip of the management of the prison service, start sacking people, and frankly start considering misconduct in public office. And the police need to be considering whether they should investigate the failures here, because they are so egregious and they are putting the public at risk.
David Shipley, you wrote an excellent piece in the Telegraph I was hoping to talk to you about today, and that is the perception of crime, the fear of crime, and how it taints the public. And we have yet a political and a journalistic class saying, oh, don't worry, you know, crime is going down. What are you complaining about? Nothing to see here. Statistics are manipulated. But here's the point. When you get 2 cases like this in one day, in one nick, when you see people being randomly stabbed on the streets of Britain, on trains in Britain, sex offenders, impotent to deport them, it creates something in the public mindset where a real fear takes hold.
Yeah, it does. And it's an absolutely rational fear. People correctly understand that the state is not functioning. The police only charge in about 6% of all crimes with the victim. Even for knife offences, only 1 in 9 result in a charge. The prisons can't hold people. We lose people all the time. The police, we see again and again, are ignoring or missing opportunities to stop dangerous men before they attack and try to kill people. The whole system is failing to keep people safe. So yes, people feel less safe. And that's at a backdrop of, you know, soaring rates of rape, soaring rates of sexual assault, soaring rates of knife crime over the last decade. People are right to be worried. And those who tell them, oh, you know, crime's falling overall, or the country was much less violent, much more violent 20 years ago, I just think are not being honest. Because actually, it's very unevenly distributed. And if, let's say, you are a middle-class man who lives in the countryside and drives a car everywhere, you probably are safer than you were 20 years ago. But if you are a person who lives in a city, a person who rents in a flat and spends a lot of time outside, a woman, a girl who might be subject to sexual assault or rape on public transport, you are not more safe. You are much less safe. And pretending that isn't true is disgusting.
I think you're entirely and exactly right, David Shipley, and well done for speaking out about this, because I'm losing my rag with the amount of Liberal commentators like saying just calm down. You're being racist. You're being irrational. You're revving up the public mood. At GB News, you're the problem. Calm down. The problem is people feel their city centres, in particular, are simply becoming anarchic.
They do. And, I often speak to women who are really worried they can't carry any kind of self-defence equipment. There's a real push. Women are now saying we want to be allowed to carry pepper spray, and they should be allowed to. If the state isn't going to keep us safe, then, I think we need to give other opportunities for us to protect ourselves.
David Shipley, it's very, very thought-provoking. Please come back on the show. Excellent guest. I'm so glad we got to you today. Thank you, David. A pleasure to have your company, and also to you, Festus. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And Nigel, we'll get to you before the end of the show, because there's lots more to come. Don't go anywhere. I'll bring all the latest on the ongoing manhunt for the Algerian visa overstayer and registered sex offender, Ibrahim Kaddour Sharif. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:24 on this astonishing news day. With me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Let's return, of course, to that breaking news. A second manhunt is now underway. Surrey Police is appealing for help to find that man on your screen, 35-year-old William Billy Smith, after he was mistakenly released in error from the same nick, HMP Wandsworth. That was on Monday. Now, it's also come to light that Ibrahim Kadir Sharif, the foreign prisoner, the Algerian national, aged 24, who was also mistakenly released from the same clink, HMP Wandsworth, last Wednesday, was a visa overstayer. And that is the mugshot. We were calling for that mugshot for 2 hours. How come they released a mugshot of William Biddy Smith and not of Brahim Kadir Sharif? I think we've also got some footage which the Metropolitan Police have released of his arrest. There he is. I believe this is from September. He was arrested. Now, let's just recap, if you're joining us, this astonishing catalogue of errors. He was in prison for trespassing with intent to steal, but we have learned today he was also a registered sex offender. 18 months he was placed on a community order for exposing himself. We also learned today he came into the country, at least initially, legally. He came in on a visitor's visa in 2019, but when that expired in February 2020, on the 6th of February, there was an automatic case against him for deportation. Well, you know, over 5.5 years later, he hasn't been deported. He wasn't deported when he went to prison, despite the fact he was wanted for overstaying a visa, despite the fact he committed 2 serious offences. And then we found out also he'd been at large for 6 days before the police were told by the prison he could be literally anywhere in Britain or on the planet. He might have finally done us a favour. He might have deported himself back to Algeria. We might never be able to get hold of Ibrahim Kadir Sharif. Nigel Nelson, you've been waiting patiently to give your say on this in this past hour. It just paints a picture of a country that doesn't know its what's it from its elbow.
Yep, I think that's probably a fair summary of what's happened today. I mean, first of all, let's think where we started. It was only 5 hours ago this whole thing kicked off at Prime Minister's questions because the Tories tried to a bungled political trap which they set for David Lammy. That's what they thought they were doing. And suddenly we've got all this information out over the afternoon. So everybody's claim about, well, we didn't have the information back then, when they put their backs into it, the information comes out. We now know all the mistakes that have been made. We know that the police weren't told for 5 days after this Algerian was mistakenly released. All these things need to actually be sorted out and tightened up. The best way of doing that is with a proper investigation, probably with...
What's that going to teach us?
Well, I think
there's an investigation, an 8-week investigation currently going on into the release of Kabata.
You're absolutely right, but the kind of thing I'm thinking of, this is where we have an inspector of prisons. That's why we have one. What is happening at Wandsworth? We still don't know what happened, why the police weren't informed for 5 days. Inside the prison, did someone not notice that maybe Sharif wasn't actually in his cell? Because that's where he was meant to be, because he wasn't meant to be released. So there's a whole host of questions that need answering. They ought to be done quickly. That's the right way to do it. A longer investigation to find out how we actually make the early release system work properly. But that is a longer process.
This won't stop. This won't stop. There's as sure as night follows day. We had Festus in, the former Police and Crime Commissioner for Bedfordshire, a short while ago. He said this won't be the last time this happens. It's going to keep happening. And the detail of William Billy Smith, it's almost funny. Here's a geezer who has a video hearing in Croydon. He's sentenced to 45 months for multiple counts of fraud. He simply then walks out. He simply walks out of jail. We don't know where he is either. He's on the lodge, could be in Surrey, could be in Woking, could be anywhere. They seek him here, they seek him everywhere. We don't know where these people are. And that's the point. And particularly, I'll put it to you, in the case of Ibrahim Kader Sharif, a registered sex offender, it paints a picture of a country out of control and a public losing faith in authority in the prison service, in the police service, in our elected representatives, in the Justice Secretary, in the Prime Minister himself. It's a country that is living in fear.
Well, I mean, certainly when things like this happen and when so many mistakes have come out over just one afternoon, of course you lose faith in authority. I think we have to actually sort of go back a stage there. The early release scheme only happened because there weren't enough prison places.
Build more NICs.
Well,
build temporary NICs.
Let's
build Nightingale Hospitals. Build a NIC.
Yeah, well, a Nightingale Hospital and a prison are very different places. The Nightingale Hospital people can walk in and walk out of. You can't walk in and walk out of a prison. They need proper
these army
walls.
barracks? They're repurposing for asylum seekers. Repurpose them for cons.
Same thing.
As you say, if they put their backs into it, they'd find a way.
Fine for open prisons, not fine for secure prisons like Wandsworth is. So
Wandsworth is not a secure prison. Two of them have walked out the front door. Daniel Cully strapped himself to a wagon and vanished.
I will correct that and say it meant to be a secure prison. But what it goes back to is we've had years of underfunding. We've not been building prisons as we should. Labour are talking about doing it, but of course no one wants a prison on their backyard. You need to change.
Well, they chuck an asylum barracks on people's backyards, literally. Well, they can solve a problem like that. Sharpish when it suits them. Why can't they build a NIC?
Because people won't want that either. At the moment, the only way of doing it is to change planning laws to get them through. But we had Boris Johnson promised 20,000 extra prison places. We got 5,000. Tony Blair tried to build mega prisons. Couldn't go ahead because people objected. So planning regulations are being changed. That will mean more prisons. And you can bet your life the people who find they're next door to them won't like it.
The excuses are wearing out and the public patience is rapidly running out. Nigel Nelson, thank you very much for joining us as ever. Plenty more to come throughout the rest of this astonishing show, but for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, stay safe, keep an eye out for those two wanted cons. Here's your traffic and your travel updates, and don't forget to stay with us.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A99 Clithmains is closed in both directions due to a traffic incident. Seek alternative routes. Cheshire East faces a collision on the M56 eastbound, reducing 2 lanes to 1, expected to clear by 8:03 this evening. The M5 northbound in South Gloucestershire between junction 18A and junction 14 has 50-minute delays. A collision on the A20 eastbound in Kent has closed all lanes, and on the trains there are disruptions between Landrindod and Swansea, while cross-country reports issues between Birmingham New Street and University. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon. The top stories from the GB newsroom. Police are hunting another prisoner who's been accidentally released from HMP Wandsworth. Surrey police have put out an appeal to find 35-year-old Billy Smith, who was released in error on Monday. He has links to Woking but could be anywhere in Surrey, the force said. Well, that's as the 24-year-old Algerian man mistakenly released from prison in London has been named as Brahim Kadur Sharif. He was wrongly freed from HMP Wandsworth in southwest London on the 29th of October, but the error wasn't reported to police until nearly a week later. It's been confirmed he is not an asylum seeker but was serving time for trespass and has previously committed sexual offences. He entered the UK legally on a visit visa in 2019 and has now overstayed the visa. A migrant who crossed the Channel twice has been deported to France again, just weeks after being sent back under the government's one-in, one-out scheme. The Iranian man was first removed in September but made a second small boat crossing in October before being detained immediately after arrival using biometric data. And in France, 2 people are in intensive care and several others injured after a driver ploughed into pedestrians and cyclists on the island of Oloron. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me at 6 o'clock.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is an exceptionally mild bonfire night for most of us. Rain in some places, particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland, but for many parts of the UK it is actually drier than the last few days. That's because we're in between systems. We've got low pressure still sitting to the south, maintaining this mild southerly breeze, but it's tending to push the rain into Scotland and Northern Ireland, and even where the rain ends up, there will be some gaps in the cloud and the rain, so not raining all evening. A few bits and bobs of rain out towards the far west, otherwise mostly dry with clear spells for bonfire night, and by the time we get to dawn, even at this stage, temperatures are still in the teens fairly widely across the country, so certainly not a cold night. And as we start off Thursday, yes, a lot of cloud cover around, but there will be some sunny spells in 1 or 2 spots, particularly northeast Scotland, for example. Outbreaks of rain at this stage clearing Shetland, staying damp through central and western Scotland, but the rain on and off. Likewise for Northern Ireland. A few light showers, but a lot of dry weather as well, despite the largely cloudy skies. We've got some more showers developing during the morning across England and Wales, especially West Wales, parts of Cornwall, where there will be some heavy downpours starting to emerge, and an area of showers pushing through parts of the Midlands, the south and southeast of England. So Thursday's a day of mixed weather, but it's not as wet as previous days. There is a lot of dry and fine weather out there, plenty of sunshine in the east and some emerging sunshine into the southwest as well as parts of Wales, in between a few showers. But it's another very mild day with lighter winds compared with the last few days, temperatures of 17, even 18 Celsius. Then we go into Thursday night with a mixed bag. Clear spells for many, but some showery rain about. And Friday starts off fine, but there's an active weather front moving in from the west, bringing us better wet weather. That clears away for Saturday, where it's mostly dry for most.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News. No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Time is 5:37 on this incredible news day with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, today marks 1 year since President Donald Trump thrashed Kamala Harris in the race to the White House. But some are protesting still about his second term at a so-called Trump Must Go Now demonstration. Let's cross live now to GB News presenter Ben Leo, who's at that protest in Washington, D.C. Ben, welcome back. The last time you were with a gentleman who was, how should we put it, somewhat refreshed and bilious about Donald Trump. What's the latest there?
Yeah, as you said, Martin, it's been a year since President Trump was elected in November. He's been in power for 10 months, and it kind of reminds me of the Brexit shenanigans after the Brexit vote in 2016. People still not happy with the Democratic vote. We're here at the Washington Monument, if you can just spin around, in the capital in the United States. I'd say around 2,000 people here protesting President Trump, basically saying Trump must go now, calling him a fascist dictator, against the illegal migration crackdown. They're against the fact that he's accused of taking bribes for building a ballroom at the White House. The ballroom, by the way, is being funded by donors and his own money. Let's take a look around. I don't know how this is going to go, so we'll see what happens, but let's get some colour. There's a guy dressed, there's this theme, Martin and viewers and listeners, there's this theme that President Trump wants to be a king. So we've got a guy here in a Trump mask with a crown on his head. The sign says, "The insane reign of Donald the Terrible. I am your greatest emergency," alluding to the fact that they reckon Trump wants to be a king. We've got some Palestine flags here, a couple of guys wearing masks, a sign here, F Trump. You've got some Ukraine flags, Palestine flags, trans flags, as you'd expect. Let's try and speak to some people. Let's ask these guys here. Bear with me, bear with me. Hello, sir. You're live on GB News in London, in the UK. Just seeing why you're here.
Sorry, no press interviews today, but thank you.
Oh, okay. You come down to a protest, you don't want to say why you're here?
Thank you for the...
Right, okay. Makes sense. Let's try and find someone else. What's this here? Pam Bondi for sale, USA. Hello, sir. Are you with the media, are you? Yeah. Okay. Let's get these ladies here. Hang tight, viewers. Hello, ladies. You're live with GB News in London. Just seeing why you're here today.
Using our voices to stand up for democracy and for what's right.
Democracy?
Yes.
What's happened to democracy here in the US?
We have an authoritarian government right now who's turning everything upside down and doesn't stand for what the American people stand for. I think he has his approval rating is tanking, and we're so excited to follow up on the elections yesterday.
Yes, you had some good wins in New York and Virginia yesterday for the Democrats. I mean, that's interesting you mentioned that, because lots of people here saying that Trump is a fascist and so on, this is a fascist state in America right now, but yet the Democrats won elections yesterday. So how does that work?
Because we're tired of it. We're sick of it. We're saying no, he's gone too far, way too far. Yes.
But how's it fascist though? If there's elections yesterday which the Democrats won by some margin in New York and so on.
Fascism doesn't necessarily mean that they can steal our elections. Our elections are based at the county level, so to orchestrate and rig every county would be nearly impossible, which gives me great faith in our system of how we elect people.
Okay. Great. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Let's see if we get one more person. Martin, viewers, listeners, hang tight. We need to hand back. Oh, there's some nice pretzels here. Martin, it will come back to us in the next hour or so. We'll try and get some more people. But for now, back to you in London.
Yeah, thank you very much there, Ben Leo. Isn't it funny how, as you say, in Britain, they wear the top hat, the anti-Brexit top hat. In America there, they seem to wear berets and trans flags and Palestine flags. Thank you very much indeed there, Ben Leo in DC. Now let's return now to, of course, today's huge breaking news stories. And it's this, a second manhunt is now underway. Surrey police is appealing for help to find 35-year-old William Billy Smith. You can see him on your screens there now, after he was mistakenly released in error from HMP Wandsworth on Monday. It also came to light earlier on today that Brahim Kador Sheri, also going by the name of Ibrahim, he's the foreign, the Algerian prisoner who was also mistakenly released from HMP Wandsworth last Wednesday. He was a visa overstayer. He came to the country legally, but he was here illegally. And that on your screens there is the first mugshot of him. He's simply disappeared. We don't know where he may be. We've also got some footage here of him being released. This was him being arrested, beg your pardon. This was when he was arrested for that offence in September. He was jailed in Wandsworth for trespassing with intent to steal. But it's emerged today that the 24-year-old Algerian visa overstayer, there'd been a warrant out for his deportation. A case emerged in February 2020, more than 5 years. This individual, Ibrahim Kador Sharif, had been in the country illegally. In that time, as well as the trespassing with intent to steal, we learned today he's a registered sex offender. He exposed himself in a public place and had an 18-month community order binding him over for good behaviour, which patently and utterly failed to stop him offending again. Nigel Nelson, it's been a day of abject calamity, a catalogue of chaos, of dysfunction, of failure in the prison system, in the police system, and I say to you again, this goes right to the very, very top. We have a political class that simply aren't fit to govern.
Well, I mean, certainly the politicians haven't distinguished themselves today, and that applies to David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, equally James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary. They're appalling PMQs, both of them. Lammy is standing in for Keir Starmer, who's at COP in South America.
Keir Starmer always seems to be aware of some foreign jolly when chaos breaks out on British shores.
We will probably disagree, but I don't think climate change is actually a foreign jolly. I think it's actually quite an important thing for Keir Starmer to be at. But certainly his deputy didn't distinguish himself today, because the big question is why, when he was being asked questions about Sharif, why he didn't actually reveal what he actually knew. Now, partly that's James Cartledge's fault for not asking the right question.
He could have said to him, yes or no, to your knowledge, has another foreign offender been released from a British prison?
Yes, that's
right. And because now we know that David Lammy not only knew, he had a pre-prepared statement he was thinking about reading out, David Lammy would have had to have said yes, because otherwise he'd have been lying under parliamentary oath. But
that's right.
He didn't get asked that question by James Cartledge, he slipped through the net.
Yeah, so if he'd been asked a direct question, I mean, what James Cartledge was trying to do was lay an elephant trap, because I don't think the Tories knew whether David Lammy knew about this prisoner. So what they wanted him to do, the actual question was, will you reassure the public that nobody else has been released?
But they missed the moment. They could have gone for Lammy's throat on question 2 or 3 and they'd have had him.
Yes, but I mean, David Lammy was astute enough to see an elephant trap coming, and of course he wouldn't answer the question. It was only later we found out he actually knew what was being referred to.
And by the way, we're not even talking about the fact that David Lammy forgot to wear a poppy to his first time hosting PMQs as Deputy PM on the same week as Remembrance Sunday. Now, if in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Heavy downpours likely over the northeast of Spain and southern France over the course of Thursday. Some showery rain also for the Greek islands, particularly Corfu. Much of Italy looking fine with some autumn sunshine in Rome. There's that heavy rain just clearing away from Barcelona, but bringing some downpours to the south of France. Showery rain also clearing away from the Balearics. Much of southern Spain dry and sunny. Small chance of a shower or two over the Canaries. They should be clearing away as we head into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Royal British Legion is launching the Poppy Appeal to raise funds to support the armed forces community.
Well, the launch will be held at Frameless, where veterans supported by the RBL will share their stories amid a spectacular, immersive poppy landscape projection.
Well, the appeal will encourage the nation to wear a poppy to send a personal message of thanks to those who serve.
Well, let's talk to our national reporter, Will Godley.
And this is all part of the Royal British Legion's fundraising, this Poppy Appeal, happening from now until Armistice Day on, of course, 11th of November, raising money for the armed forces community. They're hoping to raise £50 million to support the some 7,000 veterans, family members and armed forces. And when you were in Afghanistan, that's when your military career came to an unexpected end, wasn't it? What happened there?
So I was the point man in a foot patrol, and unfortunately I was involved in an explosion which subsequently took my hearing from my left ear, and due to that I was forced to leave the army for medical reasons.
And since then, Jason, you've been supported by the Royal British Legion. What kind of support have they offered for you?
Well, it's a vast array of support, really. It can be financial, you know, mental health. They can signpost you for different various charities and support that, you know, as veterans that we really essentially do need, you know, to rebuild our lives and get to a better point, you know, and be positive in our lives and know that we've got that hand on our shoulder when it's needed.
And I can hear you sounding a little bit emotional talking about it. What kind of a difference has that made, that support, on your life?
Oh, it's massive, you know, you can't really... It's not something you can put into words.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back, 10 to 6. Now, earlier on today at PMQs, the Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge repeatedly questioned David Lammy on whether any other asylum seeker had been mistaken released from prison since Harash Kabatu, the Ethiopian child sex offender. Take a listen.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
Of course I apologise, and I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
I know I'm the Justice Secretary, that's why I'm at the dispatch box, also as Deputy Prime Minister.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
I've got to tell you, I spent 14 years in opposition, and I did a hell of a lot better than he's just done.
Since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison. Can he answer the question?
I'm looking forward to being up against the member for Newark next time.
It's worth pointing out that Ibrahim Kadir Sharif wasn't an asylum seeker. He actually, we found out today, was a visa overstayer who came here legally but was here illegally. Nigel, that's the final word of the show today goes to you. Lammy is in trouble. Does he have to go?
No. I don't think he's in trouble for PMQs. It was a very bad PMQs, probably the worst I've seen for years. James Cartledge was useless in his questioning. David Lammy was not very good in answering. Where he's got problems coming up is he's the Justice Secretary, prisons come under him, he's got to sort this one out.
Thank you very much, Nigel Nelson. Always a pleasure. Don't go anywhere. Coming on desk, it is Michelle Juby, the queen of primetime debate. Michelle Juby, what a day. Over to you.
The queen of primetime debate, you might call me. Well, I feel like I preside over an absolute clown world that we live in. I do say that often, but ladies and gents, as you've just been hearing now, what an absolute farce our criminal justice system seems to be. I've got Layla Cunningham alongside me, I've got Martin Abrams, and I've got a suite of guests. We are going to try and get to the heart of what on earth is going on.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is an exceptionally mild bonfire night for most of us. Rain in some places, particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland, but for many parts of the UK it is actually drier than the last few days. That's because we're in between systems. We've got low pressure still sitting to the south, maintaining this mild southerly breeze, but it's tending to push the rain into Scotland and Northern Ireland, and even where the rain ends up, there will be some gaps in the cloud and the rain, so not raining all evening. A few bits and bobs of rain out towards the far west, otherwise mostly dry with clear spells for bonfire night, and by the time we get to dawn, even at this stage, temperatures are still in the teens fairly widely across the country, so certainly not a cold night. And as we start off Thursday, yes, a lot of cloud cover around, but there will be some sunny spells in one or two spots, particularly northeast Scotland, for example. Outbreaks of rain at this stage clearing Shetland, staying damp through central and western Scotland, but the rain on and off. Likewise for Northern Ireland. A few light showers, but a lot of dry weather as well, despite the largely cloudy skies. We've got some more showers developing during the morning across England and Wales, especially West Wales, parts of Cornwall, where there will be some heavy downpours starting to emerge, and an area of showers pushing through parts of the Midlands, the south and southeast of England. So Thursday's a day of mixed weather, but it's not as wet as previous days. There is a lot of dry and fine weather out there, plenty of sunshine in the east and some emerging sunshine into the southwest as well as parts of Wales. In between a few showers, but it's another very mild day with lighter winds compared with the last few days, temperatures of 17, even 18 Celsius. Then we go into Thursday night with a mixed bag. Clear spells for many, but some showery rain about. And Friday starts off fine, but there's an active weather front moving in from the west, bringing a spell of wet weather. That clears away for Saturday, where it's mostly dry for most.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A99 at Clythe Mains is closed both ways due to a major incident. On the M4, westbound traffic between junctions 24 Coldra and 26 Malpas experiences delays. In Staffordshire, a 10-minute delay is reported on the A38 northbound. Norfolk's A11 southbound is reduced to one lane due to a collision. Kent's A20 eastbound is closed between A223 and the M25 after an incident. And on the trains, Transport for Wales routes face significant disruption, with advice against travelling between Landrindod and Swansea. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag, and we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away.